Illegal miners are heavy. We have lobbied the SNDF to join us in this operation just to assist with their skills. So we believe that with the SNDF we can at least match their skills that they are displaying on the field, even in evading the arrest.
The Gauteng Education Department has called on vendors operating on school premises to obtain a valid certificate of acceptability to ensure safety of learners who buy from them. The department's call follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement giving spaza shop owners 21 days to register their businesses. Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona.
District and schools are also required to implement measures accordingly. This includes submitting daily reports on food-related incidences using a standard template, sharing of food safety tips and awareness material to the school communities. They also need to follow the nutrition program guidelines, which are also instructing on adherence to standard operating procedures, just on how to manage food poisoning cases.
A Soshanguve couple have been found guilty for the murder of the woman's ex-boyfriend and claiming over 500,000 rand from his insurance policy. Sibusiso and Lerato Mahlangu were convicted for Sibusiso Sitebe's murder by the Pretoria High Court. Sitebe was in a relationship with Lerato and they have a child together. The NPA spokesperson Lumka Mahanjana says the case has been postponed to Friday for a provisional sentencing date.
The couple lured the deceased into their home in Soshanguve, killed him and staged the scene where they placed the ring of their husband into the finger of the deceased, dressed him up and burnt the house with the body inside. Lerato then identified the body to the police as that of her husband. This was discovered after the husband was arrested for being in possession of a stolen car in Amanskraal. After being processed, it was discovered that he was registered as deceased.
And finally, President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's looking forward to welcoming U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to South Africa next year when it plays host to the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg. Ramaphosa was speaking at the conclusion of the G20 Summit in Rio de Janeiro, where he confirmed he had extended an invitation to Trump to travel to South Africa on a state visit. South Africa formally takes over the reins of the G20 on the 1st of December. Ramaphosa said the United States, Brazil and South Africa would be serving in the G20 Troika in the year ahead.
I'm hoping that diplomacy and observing the various protocols that exist amongst global leaders as well as countries are going to underpin the way that we work. So I look forward, and I think we'll have a good summit in South Africa with the participation of the United States and also with President Donald Trump coming to South Africa. I've already invited him for a state visit.
Recapping the top story, the information regulators urge the Department of Basic Education to implement a system in the near future that will allow consent to disclose matric results. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretty good start this morning. No problems on Gauteng's highways. They're all moving very nicely. The N1 through Midrand is currently incident-free. The N3 coming up from Germiston via Galuli is also moving along quite well. And the N12, which could often bring with it some problems, coming in from Protea Glen towards Joburg early hours, is moving okay. No roadworks on Durban's M4. Southern Freeway is clear. All lanes open this morning. N3, Pietermaritzburg to Durban for the commute down there. No breakdowns, no collisions. Cliffdale moving nicely, and Cape Town busy already on the N2 inbound. There's some traffic building up between the airport and Jan Smuts Drive. That looking quite heavy for this time of morning, and the M7 out of Mitchell's Plain already queuing under pressure north towards the R300 junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's soccer. Bafana Bafana. They light up the mother city in the AFCON qualifiers, beating South Sudan. And in tennis, Rafa Nadal bids farewell as his career ends after a Davis Cup defeat. Details around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 7 minutes after 6 on this Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2024. Welcome to it, the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. Let's get you as informed as we can, shall we, over the next 3 hours on all the local and international news, peppered with a good dose of newsmaker interviews, and you'll be hearing it directly from the horse's mouth, as it were, and we'll give you some expert analysis as well as the perspectives of the broader SAFM community to help you form your view on the big issues of the day. I tell you what, I'm about to, the next three hours will be dominated with heavy content, right? And I know that it's still quite early, so let's ease you into it before we hit you with the hard content. It is 8 minutes past 6 South African time and just 8 minutes after 7 p.m. in Utqiagvik, Alaska, United States. Utqiagvik, Alaska, United States, where the sun set about 6 hours ago at about 27 minutes past 1 p.m. And guess what? It won't rise again. The sun, that is. It won't rise again until 1:15 p.m. on the 22nd of January, 2025. You heard that right. The sun set about 6 hours ago in Utqiagvik, in Alaska, in the United States, and it won't rise again until 1:15 p.m. on the 22nd of January 2025. The longest night has just begun in that town of Utqiagvik, Alaska, United States. It's apparently a thing, hey? It's apparently a thing. And it happens like clockwork every year. I had no idea. I had no idea of this phenomenon until yesterday, actually. So, as you can tell from the excitement in my voice, my curious mind is positively tingling with excitement. We'll be talking about that, and we'll have that conversation within the next 10, 15 or so minutes in our international feature, and we'll tell you all about it. Then let's get to the heavy stuff. A very few important, there's in fact an important story that is developing quietly in the background, but I think it should be enjoying more prominence than it has gotten thus far. Two separate developments feed into this story. You and I know, and we often lament how the democratic state has failed to follow through on prosecutions that were recommended by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. You'll remember that there was this law in the transition here in South Africa known as the Promotion of National Unity and Reconciliation Act, and basically formed the basis for the TRC. Part of the TRC, of course, was that the perpetrators of crimes that had a political objective could come forward and face the families of victims, the families of their victims, and tell the whole truth and reveal the political objective they were seeking to serve by committing those crimes, and then they could apply for amnesty and forgiveness and the likes, and they would then not be prosecuted. You and I have been lamenting that over the many decades since the TRC, there's just not been follow through in as far as the prosecutions are concerned, and there's been much frustration about that matter. Well, some key developments happening. Last week on Thursday, the NPA securing a conviction that is related to a TRC matter. The High Court in Pretoria finding former apartheid police officer Johan Marey guilty of the murder of student activist Caiphus Nyoka. This happened in 1987, and Caiphus Nyoka was a member of COSAS, the Congress of South African Students, and also a member of the South African Youth Congress, SAICO. So that's the one thing. Mr. Marey pleaded guilty, this former police officer, and he is due to appear for sentencing in January 2025. But guess what? In the interim, he is out on bail of 5,000 rand. You heard it right, 5,000 rand bail pending that sentencing that's coming up on the 27th of January 2025. Then today, and this is really the main story that I wanted to bring forward that I think should be enjoying more prominence. Today we are scheduled to have the trial of Tlhomedi Ephraim Mfalapitsa beginning at the High Court, Gauteng Local Division, Johannesburg. And this is for the 1982 killing of the COSAS 4. And it was found by the TRC's Amnesty Committee not to have been proportionate to the political objective he sought to achieve. And basically, if you read recently, Mfalapitsa tried to avoid prosecution by seeking a review of the Amnesty Committee's decision before Judge Stuart Wilson, and he failed spectacularly. The judge basically saying that there was no proportionality between the political objective he sought to achieve by the killing of the COSAS 4 and the act itself of killing the COSAS 4. Basically, these 4 young men were lured to an abandoned mine and locked in a room that was rigged with explosives, and those explosives were then detonated. And the objective apparently was to stop them from becoming MK operatives. But Judge Wilson, in his reading of the records, etc., of the Amnesty Committee of the TRC, basically coming to the conclusion that Mfalapitsa created the threat. Mfalapitsa and his bosses created the threat that they then sought to neutralize. These young men were nowhere close to being able to join MK and carrying out those kind of attacks. So that's happening today. And I guess the issue I want you to weigh in on here is, will we be having exactly the same conversation as we are having now about TRC prosecutions? Will we be having the same conversation 30 years from now regarding the Zondo Commission prosecutions, right? Remember, there have been recommendations for prosecutions, and there's been this pressure on the NPA. How far? When do you start? And they've said that they will only prosecute where there are prospects of success, etc., etc. And by the way, how far did we get with the prosecutions recommended by the Marikana Commission? Remember that? Do you still remember the Falam Commission? How far did we go with those prosecutions? Then what do we say of these commissions of inquiry, which are about truth-finding and not really, finding anyone guilty? It's about saying, this is what happened, these are the recommendations, follow through. You know all about the struggles of people such as Thembi Simelane's family seeking justice for the killing of Thulasizwe Simelane, the Craddock 4, the Timol inquest, etc., etc. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Are we wasting money with these commissions of inquiry that then recommend prosecution for one issue or another, and there's just no follow through? So that's the issue that's on my mind. I'll be keen to hear what's on your mind this morning. The number to dial for that is 086 000 2032. I'll also take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Of course, the issue in Stilfontein continues to be in our focus, and we'll talk about it after 7 a.m. All of your regulars are locked and loaded, and Musa with the news updates every half hour. We have Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
For that, let's say good morning to Ann Musa. Ann, good morning.
Good morning, Thulas.
What's on your diary? You heard what's on my diary.
Yeah, and I'm definitely also going to be looking at the trial regarding the 1982 kidnapping and murder of the so-called COSAS 4.
Yeah.
That is expected to begin today in the Johannesburg High Court. But besides that, stories still dominating illegal mining in the country, where operations currently are taking place to deal with it. Also, the latest developments in Stilfontein with an unknown number of miners still underground. And then yesterday, the Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe, also saying that operations likely to resume at Lily Mine in Mpumalanga. That's to retrieve the bodies of 3 workers. And we know the mine made headlines in 2016 when the crown pillar between the roof of underground levels 3 and 4 collapsed. The basic the Department of Basic Education finalizing its position. That's on the banning of the publishing of matric results in newspapers, and this after the information regulator found that the department failed to obtain consent of matric candidates or their parents to publish the 2023 matric exam results. Parliament will begin the interviews, and that's to fill a vacancy of the Deputy Public Protector, and it comes after the process was halted after the former Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, was found to have conflict of interest during the interviewing process. And in Cape Town, the case of alleged underworld gang bosses Jerome Boyson, Andre Nodi and others also set to resume, and this matter had to be postponed yesterday after an accused needed medical care. The Director for Public Prosecutions in the Eastern Cape is pleased with the progress made thus far in the Enyubeni inquest, and the inquest is looking into the deaths of 21 young people inside a tavern at Scenery Park. It continues at the East London Regional Court. And just lastly, today is World Children's Day, a day celebrated every year on the 20th of November. It is to promote international togetherness, awareness among children worldwide, and also improving children's welfare. And the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund will be having a discussion on the state of child violence in South Africa. Stats shows that at least 3 children are killed in the country every day, and the discussions will also look at the role of women, including those heading businesses, in alleviating violence against the most vulnerable in society. So some of the stories that we are focusing on.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ann Musa. She'll be keeping you updated with the news every half hour here on The Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So as you get your Wednesday started, let's give you a sense of what the weather is looking like. 3 impact-based warnings. The first one, orange level 5 warning. Severe thunderstorms resulting in damage to settlements and property, vehicles, infrastructure, disruptions to municipal services are expected in places along the Wild Coast and adjacent interior of the Eastern Cape. Then there's a yellow level 2 warning. It says severe thunderstorms resulting in localized damage to settlements and property, temporary structures, and difficult driving conditions over the eastern and northern parts of the Eastern Cape and the extreme southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Then a yellow level 3 warning says severe thunderstorms resulting in heavy downpours, large amounts of small hail, and excessive lightning are expected over the Witzenberg, Breede Valley, Langeberg municipalities and Overberg district of the Western Cape. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 30. Johannesburg, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers, 16 to 28. Mbombela, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 18 to 28. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 16 to 32. Mahikeng, fine, becoming partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 21 to 33. Bloemfontein, fine, becoming partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 16 to 33. Kimberley will be fine, becoming partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 19 to 35. Cape Town is cloudy to partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers from the afternoon, 17 to 26. George, cloudy to partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers from the afternoon, 15 to 23. Gqeberha will be cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 17 to 24. East London, cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 16 to 25. Durban will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 28. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, 22 to 30. And finally, Pietermaritzburg, partly cloudy, 18 to 32.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
I won't even hide it. I'm excited like a child about this particular story. A town in the northernmost part of the United States won't be seeing the sun, won't be seeing sunrise again until January 2025. On Monday, the sun set for the final time this year in Utqiagvik, Alaska, plunging the town into 64 days of complete darkness. This is an annual phenomenon known as polar nights. For more on this, I'm joined on the line by Professor Martin Snow, who is the research chair in space weather at the South African National Space Agency. Prof, I'm sure you can tell I'm quite excited. Polar nights are a thing. I did not know this until yesterday. Tell me about this phenomenon.
Well, sure. It's we kind of experience things like that a little bit here, right? The days are longer in the summer and the days are shorter in the winter. When you get to the extreme latitudes, either the North Pole or the South Pole in Antarctica, it becomes complete darkness for a time and complete sunlight in the summer. So it is pretty cool, though.
Have you, by any chance, seen it? Have you experienced it yourself? The spell of darkness?
Not the complete darkness there. So back many years ago, I did go to school for a year in Scotland, and I'd be going into the physics building at 10 a.m. and it was still dark, and I'd come back out at 3 in the afternoon and it was dark again.
What a phenomenon. So from what they're saying about this time, Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow, it's something to do with its location on the northern slope and the Arctic Ocean. Just tell us a bit more about how that comes into play, leading to the sun staying below the horizon for this prolonged polar night.
Right. So what causes it, of course, is that the Earth's rotational axis is tipped relative to the orbital plane, to sound like fancy, but basically, we're kind of pointed. The northern hemisphere is pointed towards the sun in July, and then as we rotate around, the southern end of the Earth is pointed towards the sun, in January. So it's mostly just a factor of how far north or south you are. And this particular town is very close to what we call the Arctic Circle. There's an Antarctic Circle in the south as well. And that's where, because of the tilt of the Earth, you're just always in the shadow of the Earth and never get to see the sun directly.
And what do we know about the climate that these spells of darkness contribute to in areas like Utqiagvik?
Well, as you can imagine, when there's no warm sunshine, it gets cold. and that town, I think it's below 0 Celsius every day during the winter, and maybe just a few days in the summer it warms up and they have some liquid water. It's kind of like in Antarctica, which is a little closer to us, but it's still far away, right? That it's covered in snow all the time. And even on the days in the summer where the sun never sets, it still doesn't get that warm. It's still covered in snow.
So tell me also about the contribution of the darkness to the development of what is known as stratospheric polar vortex. What's that all about?
Right. So the polar vortex is a wind pattern, and the word vortex means kind of like a spiral, in a circle, and so this the Earth rotating, so it's spinning, and then the cold air that also is spinning with the Earth, this makes this big column. Starting at the ground level and going all the way up into the stratosphere, and then the rest of the wind patterns, in the north we call it the jet stream. I'm not sure if there's something similar here in the southern hemisphere. But so this column of cold air that's kind of going in a circle can move farther south and bring really cold temperatures to Canada and the U.S. During the winter. So it's all a big complicated thing of how the Earth's rotation and the wind rotation and all this other stuff goes together. But it can lead to really cold times in the U.S. Luckily, here in South Africa, the southern polar vortex doesn't ever reach quite as far as us.
Yeah. Prof, just in terms of almost like every phenomenon these days that has to do with the earth and the various phenomena that affect and impact, our climate and the likes, we always have to ask and frame it against the context of climate change. Do phenomena such as the polar nights, the long darkness and the temperatures that they lead to, and the vortices that you just explained to me now, are they in a way affected by climate change at this point?
So the polar vortex, yes. I mean, it still existed, before the Earth's climate started to change. The fact that it's dark there is not due to climate change. That's just due to the Earth's location. But what climate change does is it's tending to make storms be more extreme. The hurricanes are bigger. There's many more that are close to the maximum category, and therefore cause more damage and so on. And this polar vortex, is more extreme than it used to be. But it's a natural phenomenon even without climate change.
Lastly, do we see other comparable phenomena? You mentioned your experience in Scotland, and I'm just wondering if other regions of the earth that are located in extreme parts, like this town, Utqiagvik is, whether they experience something comparable to these polar nights.
Well, yes. So all of the towns near the North Pole, but also near the South Pole. So all of the scientific bases in Antarctica in the winter, the sun never rises. It's dark the whole time. SANSA, the South African National Space Agency, where I work, has such a base in Antarctica, and it's people do volunteer to go there and live in darkness for 6 months, but not all of them want to go back and do it again.
I can imagine. Thank you for your time this morning, Professor Martin Snow, who is the Research Chair in Space Weather at the South African National Space Agency, talking to me about something that's got me all excited this morning, Utqiagvik in Alaska. The sun has set and they won't see sunrise until 22 January 2025. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us in the headlines. The Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources 2022 policy on artisanal and small-scale mining is not the answer to the challenge of illegal mining. The sentiment was shared by some MPs when the Minister and the department's officials appeared before Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources. The information regulators urged the Department of Basic Education to implement a system in the near future that will allow consent to disclose matric results. And the medical charity MSF says it will stop its operations in the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince because of threats from police. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just wanted to take you down to Cape Town. It's a very busy Wednesday morning. Of course, it is office day for a lot of the hybrid working community, so there's just a lot more traffic, certainly on a Wednesday, sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but Wednesday in the middle seems to be really peak volumes these days. And if you look at the highways, you can see that the N1 is absolutely full across all lanes between the R300 and the Sable Road exit. So if you come in from Brackenfell, Belleville, Kraaifontein, Paarl, just give yourself extra time. It just is a really busy morning. The N2 backs up from the airport all the way through with no gaps in that traffic, right through to Mowbray Main Road as well. The M7R300 coming out of Mitchell's Plain, those routes are busier than normal as well, so there's just a lot more traffic in the mix this morning. Gauteng, you're going to sit on the N1 North through Diepkloof Interchange, just a delay getting through towards Uncle Charlie's area. Apart from that, the highways are not too bad. There's a lot of congestion mid-Rand. There's major upgrades going on. R562, Olifantsfontein Road, around Pretoria Main and Old Joburg Road, around the R101. There's all sorts of like diversions and new traffic circles and bridges. They're throwing a whole lot of that part of mid-Rand, so it does get busy. The Olifantsfontein coming from Lever Road across the highway and down towards Pretoria Main Road is very heavy, and the old Olifantsfontein Road coming in from Clayville side towards the R101, that's heavily backed as well. Durban, a crash. N2 going southbound between Queen Andy and Inanda Road. That's quite a heavy backlog already on your way south towards Umgena Road, and the N2 North sitting between the M7 and Umgena Road. Breakdown in the roadworks near Westwood Mall responsible for that heaviness. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So, Zai, good morning to you. For the longest time, it seemed as if the sun had set on our national football, and it just wasn't rising like this town, Utrecht in Alaska. But it seems now we are at the sunrise of our football.
Oh my word.
With Bafana Bafana.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean, they came, they saw, they South Sudan, the sun is still rising, and I think it's going to continue to rise.
Yeah.
A little bit like the Christmas lights, also that came early to Cape Town last night. Man, Bafana didn't just qualify for AFCON, they're literally qualifying for Team of the Year at the moment. They had a 3-0 victory over South Sudan. The mother city, hosting its first Bafana game in nearly a decade, welcomed almost 50,000 fans for a night of unforgettable football. Cape Town's own Ikram Rainers got the crowd roaring with a 6th-minute opener, followed by Patrick Maswangani and Teboho Mokoena sealing the deal. Captain Ronwen Williams, celebrating his 50th cap, even joined the crowd in chants during the game's domination. Having already secured their AFCON spot, this performance capped off an unbeaten qualifier run, setting the tone for next year's World Cup qualifiers. Let's hear from Bafana coach Hugo Bruges.
And I asked the players not to spoil the party today. And that shows again the mentality that we have in that team. Those guys are hungry, those guys knows to take their responsibility. The big crowd, they couldn't disappoint them, and they didn't. From the first minute, we played good football. There was a high tempo. We had chances during all the game. 3-0. I think we made the people happy, and this is something that is very important too.
Let's go to the other match. It was a dead rubber between Kenya and Namibia in their African Nations qualifying finish goalless at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. The Harambee Stars and the Brave Warriors have already been eliminated ahead of their final Group J clash in Polokwane. In the meantime, Cameroon edged out Zimbabwe 2-1, and that happened in Stade Omnisport Amadou Ahijo in Yaoundé, Cameroon. The victory sees the indomitable Lions wrap up a successful qualifying campaign with victory as they also finish at the top of Group J. Zimbabwe, on the other hand, came into the match having already qualified for the finals, and they finished second in the group standings. Elsewhere, Aston Villa attacking midfielder Morgan Rogers has extended his contract with the Midlands club until 2030. The 22-year-old joined Villa from Middlesbrough in January 2024 in a deal worth 160 million rand plus a potential 183 million rand in add-ons. He helped Villa finish fourth in the Premier League last season and has become a regular in Unai Emery's team during the present campaign. And rugby now, the Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie confirming that SA Rugby's private equity deal will include SA partners addressing concerns raised by dissenting unions ahead of a pivotal vote. McKenzie was speaking after a meeting with SA Rugby and the US-based Achilles Sports Group in London, thanking the potential investors for their willingness to invest in South Africa, but highlighted areas of dissatisfaction, and that included the lack of local participation, no benefits for ex-rugby players, and insufficient support for development. And finally, tennis news. Rebecca Stromkova defeated Katie Bolter 2-6, 6-4, 6-4 to pull Slovakia level at 1-1 with Great Britain in the Billie Jean King Cup semi-finals. Meanwhile, tennis legend Rafa Nadal his playing career came to an end after Spain were knocked out of the quarterfinal stage of the Davis Cup by Netherlands. Nadal's final match would be his opening singles rubber off the tie, and he lost 6-4, 6-4 to Botish van der Zandloop before Carlos Alcaraz level matters with a straight sets win over Talan Griekspoor. That's a wrap of your sport. More sport for you, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For that, let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela. Good morning to you, Ndauling. Why does the U.S. Department of Justice want Google to sell off its Chrome product?
Morning, Tula. So they are claiming monopolization within the tech sector in that search industry. The U.S. Justice Department is on track to make a landmark move against Google, looking to break the tech giant's dominance, of course, in that internet search market. Officials plan to ask a judge to force Google to sell off its Chrome browser, a measure aimed at dismantling the company's monopoly. This development follows the DOJ's filing of court papers last month, hinting at structural remedies to prevent Google from exploiting its market dominance through select products. According to Bloomberg reports, the DOJ will also push for Google to implement new measures related to AI and its Android smartphone operating system, Google Play. This marks a significant escalation in the government's efforts to curb Google's market dominance. Now, in response to the reports, Google has said that it would harm consumers and businesses if it was forced to sell Chrome. Now, Chrome is one of the core operations of Google's business. It is the most used browser worldwide, with Web Traffic Tracker, SimilarWeb, placing its global market share at 64.61% in October. Google Search controls almost 90%, 90% share of the Google search engine market. It is the default engine in Chrome as well as on many smartphone browsers, including Safari on iPhones. Google's parent company, Alphabet, also makes up a chunk of the market, being the third most valuable company in the US. Now, if successful, the move could have a far-reaching implication for the tech industry and just reshape that digital landscape. Meanwhile, the DOJ is expected to provide its final proposed remedies to the courts today.
I almost feel sorry for Google. If it's not Russia finding them all the money in the world, 20 undecillion, which is like a 20 with 36 zeros behind it. It's the U.S. Department of Justice putting this kind of pressure on them. Tell me about Walmart. Why are they buoyant about the state of the U.S. consumer?
So it's mainly on the back of slowing inflation. So that slowing inflation in the third quarter in the U.S. really improving consumers' purchasing power. And this being evident in Walmart's earnings report. The retailer's U.S. sales rose 5.3%. Beating analyst estimates of 3.6%. It saw sales growth across categories, including the general merchandise segment that had suffered declines for more than 2 years due to sticky inflation. Walmart also posted comparable sales growth in its health and wellness category, that of course being a defensive category, and this was helped by strong demand for weight loss drugs. Now, the upbeat performance allowed it to raise its profit forecast for the third consecutive time this year, suggesting optimism ahead of the holiday season spending period. The retailer now forecasts financial 2025 net sales to rise in the range of 4.8 to 5.1% compared with prior expectations of 3.7 to 4.7% growth. It also expects its annual adjusted profit per share to be between $2.42 to $2.47 compared with its previous forecast of up up to $2.43. This, of course, fueled by expectations of increased spending as the economic environment improves following the 2 rate cuts from the Fed.
All right, Dowling, just your first recap of the markets here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So markets quite choppy this week, Tulas. U.S. stocks ending the session mixed yesterday. Earnings took a bit of a backseat over the past 2 weeks as focus was on the U.S. election. Now that has taken place, traders are eyeing comments from corporates about the outcome of the election. Most companies taking a bit of a wait-and-see approach, but Walmart raising concerns about the effect potential tariffs will have on inflation. So that's spooking markets a bit. Here at home, the JSE faring well, closing mostly in the green yesterday with the All-Share up 0.12%. The Rand in the meantime back above the 18 Rand mark, trading at 18.07 to the dollar. Weakness coming through there due to escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine, affecting emerging market currencies and then also weighing on the Rand. Those concerns also spooking Asian markets this morning, with stocks there mostly in the red. The Japanese Nikkei taking the biggest knock, down 0.4%.
All right, Ndauling, that's Ndauling Lechela there. She's back with her second update just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. SAFM. Prime time all day long.
17 minutes to 7. Now, we are told that every day 33 people die because of gun violence in this country. As a result, lobby group Gun Free South Africa is calling for stronger laws and strategies to control firearm ownership. Police data indicates that guns were used in 12,000 to 16,000 murders in the country between 2023 and 2024. For more on this, I'm joined on the line by Damian Anslin, who is the chairperson of the South African Gun Owners Association. Good morning to you. I've got to thank you for your time. So, given the facts and figures that I just cited, do you agree that we have a gun crisis in this country?
Morning, Thulasizwe. Thanks to you and your listeners. We're going to differentiate between illegal gun ownership and lawful gun ownership. Law-abiding citizens do not commit crimes, and the biggest issue we have is the fact that criminals are getting their hands on guns, and they're getting their hands on guns through various sources, such as cross-border, through the police corruption system and various other means. Criminals will always get their hands on guns, and that's why we say effective policing and more needs to be done to combat organized crime, and more needs to be done with crime intelligence. So it's not about the law-abiding citizen. The law-abiding citizen has to jump through many hoops to obtain a firearm. Very, very, very little crime is committed by law-abiding citizens. We're talking about illegal firearms getting in the hands of organized criminals.
So when organizations like Gun Free South Africa agitate for a removal of all firearms from civilians, licensed and unlicensed, you wouldn't agree with that position?
Absolutely not. I mean, taking guns away from law-abiding citizens, who are the only ones who are going to own guns then? It's going to be the criminals. The criminals, by nature of their profession, are not going to abide by the law. So you can have as many laws as you want. Criminals are not going to abide by those laws. And as I said, law-abiding citizens, we have to jump through many hoops to obtain a firearm. We do not commit the crime. Crimes are committed by criminals. Let's tackle crime. Let's be hard on criminals. Let's be hard on criminals using firearms. Let's be hard on getting to grips with how the criminals are getting their hands on firearms. And that's the big issue here.
Well, Mr. Anslin, part of the how to that question you just posed there is that in many instances, the firearms are obtained, they start off as legal and licensed firearms and end up in the unlicensed market through such things as robberies where these are taken and just, sometimes negligence of owners and sometimes just theft and the likes. You get where I'm going with this, that the licensed firearms are a part of the supply chain for unlicensed firearms. What do you say to that?
Well, you've got to differentiate again between guns that are stolen. Someone comes into your house and rips out your safe. You cannot be blamed for the criminal act as a law-abiding citizen. And then there's a huge recovery rate. There's a far better recovery rate of any firearms that have been sort of stolen from law-abiding citizens than there is from the police. So what happens with a gun that's stolen from law-abiding citizens, there is investigations, and typically there's a dramatic recovery rate. There's a large recovery rate of those civilian firearms. So if you look at the police statistics, they keep good statistics on loss or theft of firearms from law-abiding citizens, and the recovery rate is substantial. So in actual fact, law-abiding citizens are not really contributing to the problem at all.
So in terms of regulation, what needs to happen? I know that there's this draft firearms amendment bill that is being debated. What should it cover, and what should it provide for that would solve the problem that you and I can agree that we have of firearms being used in violent crime in this country?
Right, so as I said at the beginning, it doesn't matter how many good laws you have. We have a good Firearms Control Act and regulations. It's a good act. But it's the implementation of the law and the act that is always the problem. So there's nothing really wrong with the current act itself. Maybe we can tweak a few things here and there, but with regards to the actual process of obtaining firearm and the control of firearms, we have a good piece of legislation. But effective policing is the issue. There was a WITS report that was done by government, and WITS report said you can have as many laws as you want. Criminals are not going to abide by the law. You need effective policing. You need to have police that are involved in special units that tackle the illegal gun problem, not creating more laws. Creating more laws is not going to solve the problem at all.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Damian Enslin, who is the chairperson of the South African Gun Owners Association.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let's take one or two of those voice notes. On my screen at the moment, just a few minutes ago, was a repeat and highlights of the game that took place in Cape Town yesterday between Bafana Bafana and South Sudan. It was packed. It was jam-packed. And what a showing Bafana Bafana put up. Let's hear what you have to say about that this morning.
Good day. Good morning, Mr. Simelane. On a lighter, very beautiful note, football. Bafana is hoying. They're hoying. Nowadays, if you say, no, let me pass by gym and I'll watch the game later. When I come back, when you come back, it's 6-0. Bafana is not playing. And something that I am not happy about is how we are not, how do you call it, broadcasting the downfall of Ghana. Remember our new arch enemies who cheated us out of a World Cup spot. They're down there. They're doing what we used to do. They're not even using calculators. They are not qualified. I think they scored 1 goal. So yeah, let's keep going. I hope Hugo Bruce is teaching the guys something. When he leaves, we won't start struggling suddenly and make Ghana continue to go down. Thank you.
I don't know about that part about Ghana continuing to go down, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Bafana are, quote unquote, as you say, hoying these days, and it's quite beautiful to watch. It's quite interesting to see that Hugo Bruce has, not only made big promises and undertakings at the start of his tenure, he's followed through on those. Hey, he really has. Let's see what happens over the next few months as we build up to Morocco 2025.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very busy through the Midrand area. Not only the highway going southbound, which is full of traffic this morning from Brockfontein down to Olifantsfontein, but just off the highway, major construction, road closures, new traffic circles, deviations to work through. Old Joburg Road, Olifantsfontein, Pretoria, Main, that side of Midrand. So it's all very heavily backed up in all sort of directions. Southbound on Old Joburg Road, inbound on the old Olifantsfontein from Clayville, coming from Blue Hills, through Lever Road on Olifantsfontein up to the highway and across towards Pretoria Main. That's all heavy. Pretoria Main going up towards Olifantsfontein is closed as part of the sort of diversion. So if you're on the highway or off the highway, approaching the highway area, it's all very heavily backed up. On top of that, there's multiple lights out. Samrand at the N1, Olifants and Lever, Olifantsfontein at the N1. So that section of Midrand, a real mess this morning. R21 North starting to queue as you get away from the airport up towards the roadworks by the Olifantsfontein Road exit at Tembisa. And heavy pressure this morning on the M1 North coming through from the N12 Potch Highway up through Eldos and Devlin. Some real pressure on the M1 North up towards that link to the N12 for a turn down to Uncle Charlie's. Durban's N2 under pressure. Southbound an earlier crash before in Under Road, just slowing traffic from Queen Nundy Drive. And there's a breakdown amongst the roadworks between Westwood Mall and Umgena Road. So northbound pressure on right as far back as the M7 highway bluff exit. That's a very heavy queue, much heavier than normal for this time of morning. Cape Town, traffic lights are out. Baden-Powell Drive at the N2, so there's some delays there. Baden-Powell at Strandfontein, no traffic lights. That's quite heavy if you're going through to Muizenberg. And the N7 Jakes Kervell Drive on top of the N2 bridge, no traffic lights there. Expect delays coming up from Vangate Mall and trying to exit the N2 highway onto that bridge system. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Festive season is around the corner. Tell hooray! Unlike most, Paul, I don't sweat going home because I have a Nedbank Just Invest account. So I'll be up this festive season. No borrowing, guys. Even you, Mr. Voiceman.
Must be nice to be you, Mabel. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.5% interest. Open yours via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Visit nedbank.co.za for more info.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So today is World Children's Day, and sadly we find ourselves having to talk about the violation of children in our societies. A new report by the Teddy Bear Foundation has exposed a low conviction rate for child abuse cases in South Africa. Data out of the foundation's court preparation program, which is designed to support victims of child abuse through the criminal justice process, shows only 4% of cases from 2019 to 2024 have resulted in convictions. Let's welcome into the conversation Shahida Omar, who is the clinical director at the Teddy Bear Foundation. Good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you for your time. 4% conviction rate between 2019 and 2024. That is shockingly low. What do we understand from the work you've done to be the reasons behind this low conviction rate?
Well, I think what we need to understand that child abuse in South Africa is a pervasive issue, and the reality is that it results in a lot of psychological, physical, and social consequences for victims. So the children or the cases that actually get reported and the ones that actually go to court, there's a gap between the reported cases and the judicial outcomes. And if we compare this to the global issue, it concurs with the findings according to the global issue. If we look at the World Health Organization, the conviction rate in child abuse remains under 10%. But if we look at South Africa, studies have shown that about 6 to 7% of reported cases lead to convictions, and the challenges are in evidence collection, the burden of proof, and systemic delays in court proceedings. So in response to this, we have actually developed this program to provide support for child abuse victims. When a criminal case is opened, the child has to testify in court. And the idea is to allay and alleviate their fears and anxieties when they appear in court.
And you are talking here, Ms. Omar, directly about data that comes through from your court preparation program, and you reviewed you had about 5,000 cases and thereabouts. Tell me about the spread of what the incidents related to that you looked at that led to you compiling this data.
Okay, so if we just look at the cases, the court outcomes of the children attending the court preparation program, where we had over 5,385 child victims of crime that were part of this program from 2019 to 24. Of the cases, 21% involved physical abuse, 46% involved sexual abuse. Now, these are all serious cases, and yet we find that only 15% of these cases went to court, while the rest were either dismissed or acquitted. And we have to look at the reality of why are cases being dismissed or there's an acquittal for that. Often from the responses here, we found that there was not sufficient evidence, or that the duration, it took too long before the case actually went to court, and even with regard to the gathering of information, inadequate gathering of information, and even the DNA DNA evidence being prolonged over a long period of time, and even where children and families where a case has been prolonged for a lengthy period of time, there's been cases that have been withdrawn or families have disappeared, they've moved on.
Yeah. As part of my studies, I had to attend a court case, a trial, and it just so happened that it was in the Randburg Magistrates Court, and it was a matter that had to do with, child abuse, sexual abuse in particular. And I was impressed by the dedication of the prosecutor in that center that was dealing with this. But I got to observe as well the challenging conditions under which these specialized prosecutors work. Tell me about that, the rate, the level at which these specialized prosecutions units are equipped to take cases to trial.
Okay, so you are absolutely correct, because we have the sexual offences courts. These are special courts. And sometimes I think you were privileged and fortunate to have had that experience to observe that kind of scenario. However, what we find that not all legal or the prosecutors are not all trained. They do not have sufficient or adequate training on how to communicate with children or child victims of abuse. And I think that is something that is lacking, where one of the recommendations or the outcomes that we are speaking to is that professionals need to be trained in communicating with children. There needs to be more sensitivity and expertise around young witnesses, speaking specifically to children. So I think that is something that has to be addressed, because if we look, and I can just the most recent case of how children are cross-examined in court by the prosecutors and even by the defense, I think that leaves a lot to be desired, which causes further trauma and secondary victimization of children. If you look at the Omotoso case, the pastor who raped many children in the church, and the way one of the victims was allowed to be cross-examined, which resulted in further trauma. So again, that speaks to the lack of adequate training. And I've already spoken about forensic evidence, and also looking at opportunities where people that are working with children need a certain level of support. But also you mentioned about observers, and that is something that I would like to also speak to, that in all the years, and I'm talking of over 25 years, I think I've been invited to the court maybe twice or thrice to sit in as an assessor next to the magistrate or judge. Yeah. And again, we're not finding that service at no cost, and we're finding that opportunity is not being utilized.
Sure. Lastly, who should do what in response to the report that you have found?
When you say who should do
what should be the response from various sectors in society, government, civil society, parents, and others?
I think, So, there are systemic barriers. We have to use political power and muscle. We need to work together. Law alone is not enough. Budgets are necessary. I've just been to the ending first ministerial global conference in Colombia with the minister, and what came out from that ministerial delegation was that investing $1 in each child will yield a $7 return. So I think that is something that we have to look at, that it's a whole of society approach, it's a collective approach.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. Shahida Omar is the clinical director of the Teddy Bear Foundation. Bringing us to 7 a.m., let's check in with N. Musa now with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, operations at Lily Mine to resume, and information regulator urges publication of matric results be changed. Good morning. Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says operations will resume at the Lily Mine in Mpumalanga. The mine made headlines in 2016 when the crown pillar between the roof of underground levels 3 and 4 collapsed. The rescue operations were hampered by the difficulty of determining the location of trapped mine workers Priti Nkambule, Yvonne Mnisi and Solomon Nyarenda. The deceased families have since called for criminal investigations and for the remains of their loved ones to be recovered. Speaking in the Northwest, Mantashe said they will first recover the remains before operations begin.
We are opening it. The Vantage miners is trying to get the money back to open a decline shaft to reach at the container and take those bodies out. Then it's two things that you are going to get there. The mine will be open again with BAP roof and create employment and take the bodies out.
The Madibeng municipality in Brits in the northwest is facing a potential blackout. This is due to unpaid electricity and water bills totaling 129 million rand owed to the city of Tshwane as of the 31st of October. The debt has prompted Tshwane officials to issue a notice of disconnection. Energy expert Samson Mampwelis weighs in on the matter.
In some cases, municipalities normally collect the revenue from selling of electricity, and then they redirect such revenue to other municipal services, especially where they see greater areas of concern by various creditors being expressed, and then they end up not paying Eskom for the bulk electricity purchases that they do.
The information implement a system in the near future that will allow consent to disclose matric results. The body has directed the department not to publish the results of this year's matriculants in newspapers without consent from parents. This after it conducted an assessment to determine whether the publication of matric results is in compliance with the Protection of Personal Information Act. The body argues that although the names of the learners are not published on newspapers, the exam numbers are in sequence, therefore they are not accorded privacy. Information Regulator Chairperson Advocate Panzi Tlakula.
They can publish provided that they obtain the consent of the parents or guardian. We looked at other legal basis for publishing matric results. For instance, the Act says you can publish without obtaining consent of the parents if you can prove that that publication is in compliance with a public obligation imposed on you by a public law. Now we did not find any law which obliged them to publish matric results.
The Companies and Intellectual Property Commission is encouraging informal traders to educate themselves about ways to regularize their operations. The Commission has emphasized that compliance is not only limited to the CIPC registration, but extends to different regulators, including the local municipality for health and safety inspections. Senior Manager for Companies and Close Corporations at the CIPC, Advocate Krista Klokau, says while the process is voluntary, it does provide a lot of transparency.
If there are foreign nationals, they have to go through, there's a specific platform that they have to use that's different from locals, because we can validate all local citizens through the Department of Home Affairs that ease up the process. But unfortunately, foreign nationals, we can't. So they will have to go through what we call the FAV, Foreign Assurance. They need to supply us with the certified passport or a foreign identity document.
And finally, the medical charity MSF says it will stop its operations in the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince because of threats from police. Last week, 2 people being transported in an MSF ambulance were taken out and shot by officers in vigilantes searching for gang members. The BBC's Will Grant has this report.
MSF obviously say they have decided to suspend their operations in the Haitian capital with a heavy heart because they've been there for 30 years, but go on to list a number of other incidents in the recent past that have taken place that have simply made life unworkable for them for the time being. They have a good reputation. They do important work. They have 5 different hospital facilities and a number of these sort of mobile hospital units. So to have something like MSF operating is a very, very important resource, and I think it will be felt.
Recapping the top story, Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says operations will resume at the Lily mine in Mpumalanga. The rescue operations were hampered by the difficulty of determining the location of 3 trapped mine workers. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Black Friday is the season for unbelievable savings, and Outsurance has a deal you cannot miss. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask for 500 Rand cash. Make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings if they are cheaper, or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754 to switch and save today. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, where you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The story we're paying close attention to is the really deteriorating state of traffic flow through a section of Midrand. There's all sorts of major roadworks and upgrades going on. Old Joburg Road, Pretoria Main around Olifantsfontein Road. A section of Pretoria Main going north is closed. There's all sorts of deviations around some new traffic circles, a new bridge and flyover. So it's all just very messy in that section of Midrand. On top of that, you've got multiple lights out, including Samrand at the N1, Olifantsfontein at Lever, Olifantsfontein at the N1. A little bit further south, you got New and 16th down. So really from New Road right through to Samrand and everything in between, it really is very heavy. And that's, of course, off the highway. Just getting to the highway is the problem. Then you get into some heavy stuff on the highway as well. The Mike 1 from Buccleuch down to Marlborough Drive is unusually backed up today. And the N1 from Eldorado Park passing Devlin. Big, heavy traffic up to Deepcliff for connections onto the N12 eastbound to Uncle Charlie's. Durban, the N2, super heavy this morning. A breakdown before Mgena Road. Traffic is parked heavily right back beyond the M7. Bluff exit the M7 into Pinetown, looking slow up towards the N3 highway. And Cape Town, a lot of traffic lights out at some big junctions. Baden-Powell at the N2 is offline. Baden-Powell at Strandfontein Road's offline. Both of those queuing on Baden-Powell. And the N7 Jakes Kervell Drive at the N2 bridge. There's no traffic lights there. And in that area, crash on the N2 inbound before you get to the N7. So a lot of traffic building in that part of Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's soccer action. AFCON qualifiers. Bafana had a stunning 3-0 win over South Sudan last night. And in rugby, the brothers Jaden and Jordan Hendrickse will start as halfbacks for the first time in the Autumn Nations match against Wales. We'll bring you details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Wednesday, we are into the second hour of the morning brief. It's good to be in your company this morning. Let me tell you what's coming up very briefly in the next few minutes. We'll focus on governance, particularly at the provincial and national level in as far as the management of public finances is concerned. We are previewing the Auditor General's appearance before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and that's scheduled for this afternoon. We will be seeing saying whether or not the marginal improvement in the management of public finances at provincial level and national level that was recorded in 2022-2023 has continued into this year. So we have that conversation coming up, just checking on the state of management of public finances by entities and provincial and national government, separate of course from the conversation we were having a few weeks ago about management of public finances by municipalities. That's a separate report. We'll have that conversation in the next few minutes. Then the other big talking point that we've had for quite some time, we've been intrigued and somewhat concerned about how the situation in Stilfontein was going to play out. And yesterday there was a bit of a toing and froing between me and the MEC from the Northwest about whether or not there was a rescue operation that was being planned by officials at that Stilfontein mine with regard to those illegal miners that are underground. Well, we got some clarity yesterday during the brief hearing of the court case that has to do with the assistance that they should or should not get those people who are underground. At least we now have an official on-the-record version that was presented by government's lawyer, Advocate Bonginkosi Lukele, before the court, before the High Court. So we'll touch base on that situation. That's coming up in the next few minutes. Of course, taking your calls on these issues and others. Give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Also send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one get one offer, you get great value for money. You know you can trust us with over 350 stores nationwide. Get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye test and spectacle frame with lenses on your first pair. Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera and more. There really is no reason to go anywhere else. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
My business is very stressful. Construction and plumbing, anything can go wrong. The reason I chose OUTsurance because they align with my vision with regards to customer service. The fact that they won the award for best business insurance makes me feel like I'm in the right hands.
Switch to Business OUTsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Imagine a South Africa where every child born today and tomorrow and the next day and the next had enough love, enough food, enough safety and brain power today and tomorrow and the next day and the next. Together, we will change their future. Join us by visiting
holdmyhand.org.za. That's holdmyhand.org.za.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So at 2 p.m., the Auditor General, Tsakani Maluleke, will be appearing before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts and presenting the national and provincial audit outcomes. And this has to do with tracking whether or not the improvements, the marginal improvements we saw in the 2022-2023 financial year will continue. There were in that year net improvements that were about 37 auditees, and that's about 9%, which was said to have been the biggest movement over the 4-year period, with provincial governments showing a net improvement of 44, and that is 27%, and national government a net improvement of 34 auditees, that's 15%. Let's welcome into the conversation Mielani Holeni, who is the Group Chief Advisor at Ndiso Consulting. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So there was that improvement. It was deemed to be commendable, but you and I know we're coming from a very low base. What are your expectations ahead of the presentation of this year's picture of audits?
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners. I think we are seeing on the national as well as the provincial side continued and sustainable improvement with regards to how they handle their finances. And of course, it reflects in the audit outcomes. There's a sustainability factor which shows that about 110 of those institutions, whether it's departments, are continuing to enjoy the clean audits. So any numbers that add to that particular cohort of departments as well as entities that are already showing improvement. So our expectation is that at the national and provincial level, there is at least a heightened attention with regards to managing finances. There are still challenges that would still need to be addressed, but on the whole, there's momentum that shows that the improvements should be sustained going forward.
Why are we seeing these improvements, Simelane, at the national and provincial and that entity level when it's not replicated at the local government level? Does it have to do with capacity to carry out these public finance management functions that perhaps they are concentrated at one sphere, at those two spheres, and not at the other sphere of government?
Well, I think it is important to note that the provincial, national and provincial are staffed with policy-oriented people that, at least have a requirement. There's a requirement for them to have a postgraduate, qualification, or starting with an undergraduate qualification. The national as well as provincial, and as much as the elections would sway the position of who is in the ruling party, but by and large there's an insulation of the staff from the influences that would be political in nature, so they would allow them to have a more stable administrative capacity and capability. Most of the people that you tend to see as well, as I've mentioned, will have, some form of postgraduate qualification. Some are even at the level of PhD. If you look at this financial CFOs within the finance departments, they are largely structured, in an orderly fashion, and that tends to at least, cross-pollinate between province and national. And typically, people who would work at national easily work at provinces, and people who work in the provincial governments easily as well migrate to work in the national. So there is largely a cohort of skilled, capable people who are at least sticking into the public service.
Yeah, you get a feeling that we need to replicate that a bit more. Do we see a correlation between better outcomes, audit outcomes, and, the easing of pressures on the public finances and the fiscus, but also the delivery of services on the ground for residents and citizens?
Yeah, I think the one message to note is that the fiscus continues to be under pressure, and severely so. And I think that comes through as well. What doesn't help is fruitless and wasteful expenditure. When fruitless and wasteful expenditure is in excess of 7 billion or more, or even greater, it tends to at least take away from the monies that should be directed into key programs that would improve service delivery. The other areas which I think are of concern, which would be pressure points, is the material irregularities, which for instance have popped almost 14 billion. So that is an area that I think is not helping.
Yeah.
The other maybe crucial area is the exposure in terms of the guarantees that government has towards its own entities such as Eskom, Transnet, and so on, who are in the markets borrowing money. So service delivery in this case means that in those areas where monies are lost, it means the opportunity has been lost to impact services on the ground. And I think that is an area that going forward government needs to pay a lot more attention and may have more preventative measures, but not only preventative measures, have controls as well as concrete programs that will channel the spending of monies in the right areas where there will be impact, such as in the electricity, water, and the basic service deliveries that will ultimately, and roads that will ultimately support the local government.
Mielani Holeni, thank you for your time and your insights this morning. He's the Group Chief Advisor at NTSO Consulting.
Svali Weekend on a high note with Final Analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Diadora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This summer, we have extra large offers on Ford Ranger XL, XLT, and Wildtrak from only 481,900 for a Ranger XL single cab 4x2. It's the extra large Ranger offer from only 481,900. Visit your nearest participating Ford dealer. Optional service plan included. While stocks last. T&Cs apply.
Black Friday equals unbeatable deals and mega savings with Outsurance. It's Black Friday every day. Get a quote. And if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask for 500 Rand cash. Make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings if they are cheaper, or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754 to switch and save today. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, where you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
So in a moment, I'll be talking to the Reverend Mzwandile Molo of the South African Council of Churches. We're talking about that situation in Stilfontein. There's been debate whether or not those miners, those illegal miners, are trapped or they are refusing to come up to the surface. Yesterday, as I say, a bit of a toing and froing between myself and the MEC vessels Morueng from the northwest about whether or not what was being undertaken is a rescue operation. Well, we got a sense yesterday what the actual official version on the record is from the government of South Africa by Advocate Bonkosi Lukele, who was arguing, albeit briefly, at the High Court. Take a listen to what the attitude of government is with regard to those people who are underground.
The illegal miners are not trapped. And what has happened, what the police have done, they've been confiscating items like alcohol, explosives, firearms, and that they wanted to take down. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there's an alternative that has been made by the department, in the sense in that they spoke to one of the miners nearby, and Margaret Craft has been utilized for miners to come out. And about more than 500 miners have been able to exit there. Those who do not want to get out there is simply because they want to evade arrest. So that's the only reason that they are there. It's not that they are unable. But on top of that, my lady, the department has went further to engage the mine rescue services to ensure that even at Stilfontein mine shaft, those who are alleged to say they are trapped in there, they can be able to be pulled out via a cage. But the bottom line is those who want to get out, this is Minecraft, there's a Margaret mine shaft which is nearby, and majority of more than 500 of them have been able to get out. Those who don't want to get out is simply because they are avoiding arrest. And my lady, also what we were told on Saturday is that, well, the police have been blocking food, and these people are not able to get that is completely untrue. It's completely untrue because
Yeah,
the police on site, they've been.
So those are the arguments that were being presented in court there by Advocate Bonkosi Lukel. So let's take the conversation forward then. Reverend Mzwandile Molo, who is the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, joins me now for that conversation. So Reverend, I don't know how much of that clip you heard there. Are your concerns about the rights of the illegal miners allayed from hearing from government that those miners are not trapped and some supplies of food have been allowed, but it's just trying to keep bulk supplies from reaching that level underground? Reverend yeah.
So thank you for this. Firstly, we really want to say the situation itself is a very difficult and very dangerous situation indeed. And we would not claim to have a clear understanding of everything that is taking place. But hearing the clip, the pieces that you have showed me, you have played for me, I am really, really more concerned in the context of the attitude rather than the things that are being claimed. And what do I mean by that? Firstly, indeed, if the government says to us through the advocate in court that they are doing everything in their power to protect the dignity and the life of those who are underground, we are relieved to hear that. Because the initial governmental attitude, as reflected by the minister in the presidency initially, made us concerned because it had created a sense that the life of the miners is irrelevant. And our view is whether we believe these miners are criminals or not, whether we believe that they must answer to the law. The law itself demands a certain way of dealing with people, no matter how much guilty we believe they are. Secondly, as a faith community, we believe in the dignity of all of us. No amount of sin takes away that dignity. At the same time, we believe criminality in the country cannot be allowed to go unchecked. So these balances must be kept, and they can be kept by the police doing their work within the law. And indeed, if there are those on the ground who don't want to come out because they want to avoid arrest, the law should be applied in a manner that keeps the dignity of those people also in check as per the Constitution and our belief that all of us get the inherent dignity that comes from God.
Reverend, a key vexing question has been if those who are underground need assistance of one kind or another, given that they had the agency and decision-making to go underground in the first place, knowing the dangers that prevail underground, who should go underground? Have you given any thought to that as an organization? Do you have some kind of an answer in your minds as to how to navigate that difficulty?
Yes, thank you, Simelane. Indeed, as I said to you, this is a very, very vexing question in terms of what agency people have in dealing with the reality of the choices they have made. And all we are saying, there's a message that must go to those who are underground to be told that they need to get out. They need to get out orderly. They need to get out under the law. And those who are responsible for any criminality, the law will take its course. So there's a message that must talk to them and claim their agency. But that law, but that message does not disown us as society, as dependent by government, to do what we can do, even in the most difficult of situations, to do what we can do, to remain true. Remember, Thulan, when we do these things orderly with dignity, we're not remaining true to what the criminals are. We are remaining true to who we are as a society.
Reverend, thank you.
Our Constitution reflects that.
All right, thank you for that. That's Reverend Mzwandile Molo, who is the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches. Let me bring in David van Wyk, who is the lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation, into the conversation. Good morning to you, David, and thank you for your time. To what extent has this issue at Stilfontein that's playing itself out now brought into sharp focus the need to revisit this issue around the 6,000 abandoned mines that were left vulnerable to illegal mining activity?
Now, I think that we are in a situation because we have not actually managed properly the closure of mines, the re-engineering of mines, the repurposing of mines in mining communities. And as mines close down, tens of thousands of workers lose their jobs. The moment they lose their jobs, if they're from a different country, they lose their status in the country, they lose their work permits, and they become illegal. So it really requires a multidisciplinary approach between mining companies that are on the point of closing shafts, the Department of Home Affairs, the Department of Labour, and various other government departments, the Department of Minerals and Energy, so that there is an orderly process of people being retrenched, and that those people get what is due to them when they are retrenched, that they are not just thrown out into the street and then told, oh no, you must apply for your pension, or oh no, you must apply for your unemployment benefit or whatever, but that what is due to them actually is given to them on retrenchment. And then that there is a process of getting them back to where they came from, because very often big mining companies arrange transport to bring these workers into the country, but they don't arrange transport to take workers out of the country once they get retrenched. The other thing is that the government really needs to clamp down on large companies that abandon mines and that simply just walk away from their responsibilities. The far greater environmental damage that is done in our country is abandoned mines. It is not the Zamazamas that are doing the damage, it's the companies that are not maintaining the tailings, the holes, the rock dump wastes and so on that they abandon. And also these abandoned mines often become the sites of crime. I have walked on a tailings with a journalist from the London Times where we came across people breaking up a car that they had hijacked. Because, the mines are left in ruins. All the buildings and so on that are there that could have been used for other purposes in our society are just left abandoned and then vandalized, and then they become a haven for criminals.
All right, thank you for that. David van Wyk is lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Communications and Digital Technologies Minister, Solly Malatsi, says he's aware withdrawing of the SABC bill is disruptive, but believes this was justified given the weight of the matter. Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says operations will resume at the Lily mine in Mpumalanga. The mine made headlines in 2016 when the crown pillar between the roof of underground levels 3 and 4 collapsed. And the Maribeng municipality in Brits in the northwest is facing a potential blackout. This is due to unpaid electricity and water bills totaling 129 million rand owed to the city of Tshwane as of the 31st of October. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you're running to Joburg from the south, coming in from Eldorado Park, Lenasia, Protea Glen, there's some really big traffic this morning on the M1 North from sort of the N12 Potch Highway all the way through Diepkloof Interchange for connections down to Uncle Charlie. Super heavy on the M1 North. Breakdown at Van Buren, that's the last thing you want this time of morning. So heading out of Alberton and Jervis, and as you queue up through to Bedfordview, coming up past the cement factory. There's also heavy pressure N12 and R24 is in from Ekurhuleni towards Gillies as well. Mike 1 coming off the N1 Beclew down towards Woodmead Drive, that's pretty heavy. Mid-Rand really battling along with roadworks along the R101, Old Joburg Road, Pretoria Main Road junction around Olifantsfontein. That on top of faulty traffic lights from Samram down to New Road. There's some real pressure in the Mid-Rand area. Collision on the Mopani Highway coming through Block XX, so that's pretty busy. Durban, the breakdown into North Perform Geta Road is being cleared, but it's left a backlog from Cement Factory. Very slow on the M7 as well, from Hunstetman up towards St John's Avenue Bridge territory. And Cape Town, lights out Baden-Powell at the N2. Baden-Powell at Strandfontein, busy on both of those junctions. And the M7 Jake Scoville Drive at the N2 bridge, no lights there. That's quite a mess on all approaches, particularly the N2 off-ramps trying to get across that bridge without traffic lights. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. I tell you what, the folks in Cape Town know how to support Bafana Bafana. The DHL Stadium was alive, man.
Oh, what a
boost.
It was beautiful. What a boost for Bruges, I think it was. And for Bafana Bafana. Yeah, man. At Cape Town, you did it.
Yeah,
you took
absolutely.
us from... underdogs to top dogs. That's who we are. As Bafana cruise past South Sudan with a 3-0 victory, the mother city hosting its first Bafana game in nearly a decade welcomed the 50,000 fans for a night of unforgettable football. Cape Town's own Ikram Reyners got the crowd roaring with a 6-minute opener, followed by Patrick Maswangani and Teboho Mokoena sealing the deal. Captain Ronwen Williams also celebrating his 50th cap. Having already secured their AFCON spot, this emphatic performance capped off an unbeaten qualifier run. Here's coach Hugo Bruges.
And the people are coming because when they come to the stadium, they see something. And this is what we always wanted to do. And now we are able to do it because we have a good team. So the fact that this team still played 90 minutes for 100% to be first in the group, I think that is the right mentality they showed, and I'm very proud on this team to be their coach.
Meanwhile, the respected South African football coach Morena Ramaraboli has added another feather to his cap by qualifying Botswana to the Africa Cup of Nations tournament for the first time in 12 years. The Zebras played a hard-fought draw as they held on to a 1-1 draw against the record 7-time African champions Egypt in Cairo to qualify second in Group C with 8 points.
Glory to the man above. Firstly, I need to take this opportunity. They usually say coaches makes players and players makes coaches. I think when you have a good group of individuals who are willing to work and die for one mission, then everything is possible. I think they did so well. Also, the association, they gave us the support. We really appreciate the support.
Now, there was a dead rubber between Kenya and Namibia in their Africa Cup of Nations qualifying, and that finished goalless at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. The Harambee Stars and Brave Warriors had already been eliminated ahead of their final Group J clash. In the meantime, Cameroon edged out Zimbabwe 2-1. All happened in Cameroon. The victory sees the indomitable Lions wrap up a successful qualifying campaign with victory. They finished top of the Group J standings, and we have the Zimbabwe. They already qualified as well, finishing second. Avram Grant's Zambia cementing their place also top of Group G in their Africa Cup of Nations qualifying with a 2-0 victory against Sierra Leone, and that took place at the Samuel Canyon Doe Sports Complex last night. Rugby, the brothers Jaden and Jordan Hendrickse will start as South Africa halfbacks for the first time in the Autumn Nations match against Wales in Cardiff on Saturday. Head coach Rassie Erasmus has made 7 changes from the team that defeated England 29-20. Siya Kolisi captains a 23-man squad that includes 17 World Cup winners. The Hendrickse siblings are the only changes in the back line, while there are 5 alterations in the starting pack with hooker Johan Grobbelaar, prop Thomas du Toit, locks Jean Klein and Franco Mostard, as well as flanker Eldrich Lowe, who come into the injured Peter Steph du Toit. Let's hear from coach Rassie Erasmus.
We've been chopping and changing and really testing different combinations, and it's fortunate that it worked out for the two brothers. Definitely they deserve a chance together. Jordan had one chance, and Jaden is pretty settled in our team, so yeah, we're glad for them. But I think more than the family thing, that's a warm, fuzzy feeling, but the performance is very important.
That's how we wrap up the Morning Brief Sport. We'll have more for you top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Dowling once again. So, Dowling, we are in the midst of this crisis around contamination of food and just basically the quality of food. And in the midst of that, you get these images that show Lucky Star pilchards, but they turn out to be counterfeit. We're hearing now from Oceana and Woolies. What are they saying about it?
So Oceana, that owns Lucky Star, has denied any connection to the counterfeit canned pilchards discovered in a police raid in Daleside, Gauteng last week. In a statement, the company confirmed that investigations and experts found the cans to be counterfeit using an opening mechanism that doesn't match Lucky Star's. The counterfeit cans had ring pull lids, which Lucky Star doesn't have. Now, these cans were packaged in boxes labeled Woolworths Food and were part of a rejected shipment from an international supplier that didn't meet Woolworths' quality standards. Now, Woolies rejected the shipment and asked the supplier to collect it, but some of the products were allegedly intercepted, relabeled as Lucky Star, and repacked into Woolies labeled cartons. Now, this incident, of course, as you mentioned, comes amid a nationwide food crisis in South Africa, with close to 900 reported cases of foodborne illnesses and at least about 22 child deaths since September. Both Oceana and Woolworths have launched investigations into the matter, with Woolies aiming to determine why their rejected product wasn't disposed of properly.
There's an element of organized crime in all of this, right? I mean, my goodness, this is outrageous. Anyway, let's move on to this now. Coronation's annual earnings more than tripled. Tell me about that.
So Coronation Fund managers delivering strong earnings with profits more than tripling there, driven by a court victory over the South African Revenue Service and upbeat global and local market returns. Now, the Cape Town-based asset fund managers total profit after tax jumped to 2.2 billion rand, while its assets under management grew 11%. Performance fees jumped 61%, boosting its top line, and this was boosted by the outperformance of its active managed portfolios. However, Coronation faced outflows of 51 billion rand. Now, the SARS tax dispute victory allowed Coronation to release provisions set aside for potential penalties, and this resulted in a special dividend of 153 cents per share. Looking ahead, Coronation emphasized its commitment to diversity and transformation through a proposed second BBBEE deal. If approved, the deal will boost Coronation's black ownership to 51%, allowing it to participate in mandates requiring majority black ownership.
All right, a recap for us, please. Once again, Dowling, on the markets here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Kicking off in Asia, stocks mostly lower as worries mounted over escalations in the Russia-Ukraine war. With that, the Japanese Nikkei is down 0.16%. Chinese stocks, however, backing the overall trade, trading in the green, up 0.5%. Then over in the US, futures are in positive territory. Traders sifting through earnings reports and eyeing developments playing out there in Russia and Ukraine. And then back at home, the JSE closing yesterday's trading session on a positive note, with the all-share gaining 0.12%. The Rand losing some momentum ahead of the SARB's rates announcement. It's currently trading at 18.05 to the dollar.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndawleng Lechela. She'll be back with one more update for you just before the resumption of trade, which will be just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
MasterChef's salty voiceover guide to mispronunciation. Today's word, finale. Origin, Italian. Pronunciation, finale. Meaning the last part of a series, commonly mispronounced as
final.
As if you are discussing your matric results. Example.
I can't wait to see the final results of MasterChef.
If you insist on saying final, it's okay. Watch the grand finale of Final on November 23, 8:30 on S3. MasterChef, things are about to get salty.
Assurance, they understand my business. They are so good in terms of communication, which gives me confidence. It's a good decision that I've made to move to Assurance. I'm a winner. I want to be with the winners.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Eskom has made it easy for you to recode your meter. Customers must recode meters by 24 November 2024. All Eskom customers are reminded to recode their prepaid meters before 24 November 2024. If your meter is not recoded, it will not accept legally bought prepaid electricity tokens. Eskom has made this process easy for you. We have pre-coded all meters and they are ready for you to recode your meter yourself. To do this, go to any Eskom approved electricity outlet and buy an electricity credit token. Our teams are on standby to help you.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So we start in Zimbabwe, where Deputy President Paul Mashatile is participating in this extraordinary SADC Heads of State and Government Summit.
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jambo Africa. Thulas, I think you were correct. Remember, you said that Ramaphosa will know where to be seen in Harare.
Inkwazi flies these days, but I didn't think that it could fly that fast from Brazil back to Harare.
No, for me, Thulas, I think it is not only President Ramaphosa. Even President Samia Sulu is absent in Harare, which is very sad. Looking at that in the agenda today, they are going to be receiving an update on the security situation in the Eastern DRC, look at the renewing of the mandate before it expires on the 14th of next month. Also, as you know, Thulas, you have said that Mozambique is back on the news also, that they have to engage on the question of Mozambique. How are they going to handle it? Despite that, they've already said, Thulas, that let the people of Mozambique await the electoral adjudication process. And thirdly, again, Thulas, Namibia, it goes to the elections. They have to look into that aspect in terms of the readiness of the SADC Observer Mission, the Advisory Council report. So there is a lot if you can look at how this extraordinary summit that will commence this afternoon in Harare. As you have said, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, will be representing South Africa.
And there was a handing over of the baton in Brazil, Sipho, the presidency of the G20, moving from Brazil to South Africa.
Very important to us. I've always said, same WhatsApp group, Brazil, India, South Africa, BRICS members are occupying the G20. And we need to move to G21, probably with the AU now. Despite that, if you look at the origin of the G20, it came around 1999 with the influence of the Germans, Americans. But what is important is the thematic areas that will benefit Africa. And I think South Africa's presidency should represent the AU Agenda 2063. It should cover also our NDP. How do we manage that? But also the global conflicts that we are seeing in the Middle East and Ukraine, but also not forgetting the African conflicts to us, because we can't just be warming the seat between December and November 2024 to 2025, but we don't make impact in the African continent.
Yeah. Tell me about the elections in Somaliland. This should be quite interesting. The winds of change, almost comparable to what happened in Botswana.
Absolutely. When you look at Somaliland, this is, remember, it's a breakaway state from Somalia. We saw that Abdullahi Mohammed from the opposition getting 64% of the vote, becoming a new president of Somaliland. Interesting results that are coming from the Horn to us, considering that there is still a simmering conflict between Somalia, Somaliland, Ethiopia. There is this issue also of the recognition of the state of Somaliland, and also how Trump has also raised his views also about Somaliland at some point. We don't know what will be the foreign policy of the U.S. How will they accept the Wadani party that has received overwhelming 64% of the vote, beating the Kulini party that was led by Musi Bihi Abdi, who was the leader. So the Electoral Commission has pronounced the opposition as the new government.
And here's that English word, one of those English words that I personally dread to pronounce, mausoleum, in the DRC. Tell me about the mausoleum of that has Patrice Lumumba's some of the artifacts related to him.
Remember, Thulas, what we are left only with Lumumba actually was burned down with an acid by the Belgians and the CIA. Here we are talking of the golden cap tooth that was brought in 2022, that there have been a vandalism in the mausoleum, as you have said, a very difficult way to can pronounce in the morning. But here we are talking of a cultural artifact that was brought in the DRC when Lumumba was killed in 1961, that the government have said that it appears that, it is not clear whether it has been damaged or stolen. And that's how this, what you can call a cultural artifact theft to us. This is the highest robbery, to steal the golden capped tooth of Lumumba. That's what the DRC has now to us. And I think the government is pushing investigation of what really happened with the vandalism of one of the heritage sites.
Disgusting. Take me to, in your historical archives, 20 November 1944. What happened?
Thulas, I thought for 8 decades, and just where you are at the back of SABC, I don't know whether you know that area, what is it called, Fitas? Just at the back of your radio farm. That is vital to us. That's where, on this day, the Transvaal Indian Congress passed a resolution saying that they are objecting the removal of African people who were moved from Fitas to Orlando, to Thulasizwe, despite that there were Indians and Kalas and the Cape Malays who were being moved between Fitas. Others, they call it the Page View, Vrededorp, but we know in Fitas, Thulas, there were many Africans who lived there. There were many what are called cultural lifestyles that happened where Africans were there. That's where you find Sophia Town, it is Thulas. That's the history of South Africa 8 years later for the people of Fitas. As I said, just at the back of SABC, there's a great history that was mapped. Asante sana, Thulas.
All right, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa Update, a sampling of some of the leading stories around the continent and its diaspora.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretoria East quite heavy this morning. A crash on Atterbury Road and Solomon Mashlangu. So both of those routes under pressure in all directions really into that. Also a collision on Soutpansberg at Tom Jenkins. If you're coming across from sort of the Hatfield side of Pretoria, heading in towards the CBD, that section of Soutpan Road under pressure. And quite separately, there's quite a big queue on Gordon Road as you come down through Soutpans Road in towards that Hatfield area. That section of Gordon Road has been under pressure for quite some time this morning. N14 Krugersdorp Highway up to Brakfontein is heavy up to the M1, and then the queues continue right through to John Foster Drive. So between the R55 Pretoria West exit and John Foster on a combo of the N14 N1, it is heavy. Just off the N1 highway through Midrand, roadworks and faulty traffic lights causing major problems. Olifantsfontein, Old Joburg, Pretoria Main, it's all heavily backed up through there. Breakdown at Van Buren on the N3, so coming out of Alberton and Germiston, that's heavy, and the N1 up from Devlin, Eldos into Deepcliff interchange remains pretty heavily backed on a rundown to Uncle Charlie's territory. Durban's M7 going into Pinetown is heavy, queues from Hans Detman into North M7 through towards Spaghetti Junction. Westwood Mall stays heavy, and then a big queue between Kwamashu Highway and Gateway. So if you're on your way to the airport, there's two really big queues to work through today, from M7 through towards Mgeni Road and then through Kwamashu up towards the Gateway exit. There's also been a crash on Peter Mokaba near the N3 Highway, so that's likely to be quite slow around that Tollgate Bridge area. Cape Town this morning, lights are out. Baden-Powell at Strand, Fontaine Road, that's slow. Baden-Powell at the N2 Highway, lights are down there as well. And the N7 Jakes Kerrville at the N2 Highway Bridge, lights are off there. So there's delays coming up from Vangate Mall, as well as some problems coming off the N2 inbound, particularly onto that bridge system without traffic lights. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's Yusuf.
I opted out. The service was quick. Absolutely phenomenal service from Outsurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Everybody needs an island adventure. Think about it. White sandy beaches, tall coconut trees, the sun shining down on you. Moments that will have you singing, when the water's so blue. Well, this is no typical island adventure. 18 contestants will spend 39 days on the island of the idols, strategizing, backstabbing, forging and breaking alliances. Here, their meals aren't guaranteed. They eat what they catch. One mistake or betrayal might get them kicked off the island. It's a battle for $1 million on Survivor 39. Channel your best reality with Survivor Season 39. Island of the Idols, Thursdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
7 minutes to 8 on this Wednesday. Bafana beat South Sudan 3-0 in their final Africa Cup of Nations Group K qualifying match at the DHL Stadium in Cape Town yesterday. The result means that the national team is at the top of its group's standing. Let's bring into the conversation Nkululeko Nkewu, who is the founder of iDiski TV. Good morning to you, Nkululeko, and thank you for your time. Let's start with the aesthetics before we get to the quality on the pitch. It was a packed DHL stadium. What does that tell us about the state of play in as far as perceptions and fan enthusiasm for Bafana and the Bafana brand of football at this moment?
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning as well to everyone who's listening to us on SAFM. People love winning teams. They support winning teams. If you told people in an emergency meeting that the Springboks would be at X location at this time, they will be there within 2 hours' notice, maybe 10 to 20,000 people, because they are double World Cup champions, 2019, 2023. So people follow winning teams. Bafana got bronze in January earlier this year in the African Cup of Nations qualifiers. That was in Ivory Coast. And that was the first time they got bronze since the year 2000, in 24 years that they got a medal from the African Cup of Nations. Not the greatest football sometimes, but people were desperate for a team that wins, even if they win on penalties or they draw many matches 0-0. They've picked up since January. They started playing decently. Yesterday was very impressive. We've seen this year the city of Bloemfontein, they filled up the stadium. The city of Gqeberha filled up a stadium. And last night, the city of Cape Town, my city, filled up a stadium. That's because it's almost like now starting a competition where if you take the Springboks to Mbombela in Nelspruit, you take it to different cities in the country. It's like one city is trying to show the other city that we can also support the team. And I think that's the wave that's happening with Bafana. If you take them tomorrow to the KZN province, the Moses Mabhida Stadium, the people from Durban will support Bafana, almost as to show the people from Cape Town, which we too can do exactly what you've done. I suppose it's conditional because as soon as the results are not coming in, we will see people not really coming in their full numbers. However, that's not the time to discuss that. It is a time to celebrate Bafana and say well done to them for qualifying. Although it's standard expectation, we're one of the richest nations on the continent. We have a very, very decent league domestically, plays all the time on television. It looks professional. Everything is run professionally, so we should expect for them to qualify for the AFCON.
Nkululeko, I don't shy away from admitting that I was a Hugo Broos skeptic at the beginning. You were as well, right? I just didn't see it happening. And when he was making all these promises, to me it sounded like, you see now, he's got all this big talk, but will he walk the talk? He's certainly managed to do something right. Where, in your view, is he managing to build a unit, a cohesive unit? We don't expect that they will win all the time, but there's certainly a unit that he's been able to build.
Yeah, I think a wise person changed their mind as things are unfolding. He was very stubborn at the beginning. So there was a question 2-3 years ago when they were asking him, why is it that when you're picking a squad, you are neglecting Mamelodi Sundowns players? And he said outright that they could be winning domestically, but it doesn't mean anything. I'm going to pick my squad. For example, one of the players he refused to pick for a very long time is a player who is important for him now. Utembazwana from Mamelodi Sundowns. It is only when he started. The reason the Sundowns issue is based on the fact that they are maybe the third or the second best team on the African continent in football, in club football. And he was very stubborn, the coach, to include those players at the beginning. And this is not a rumor. This is not conjecture. It's something that he said. If South Africans care, they can go back to listen to what he said. And he refused to pick those players. And over time, he started picking them, and that's good for him, that he changed his mind. And I think he even said something to this effect that I've changed my mind about this player, perhaps admitting that he was wrong. And of course, I think at the African Cup of Nations, he would have had at least 9 out of his starting 11 players from that football club. And these are players that are playing continental football. They were African champions with a trophy that was created in the African continent last year. And then he's managed to integrate them with some of the players who are doing well from their clubs, Tito Maswanganyi at Pirates, Apolis at Polokwane City, and so on and so forth. So Butterford is done really well. is that he's been able to change his mind. He's allowed himself to be persuaded from time to time, to be able to pick the best players.
Very quickly, Nkululeko, I wasn't aware that the leg between qualification and the actual tournament is this long this time around. The tournament is only in December 2025. What happens between now to maintain this momentum? Do we have anything in between that will help him and his team to maintain the momentum?
Yeah, we might be sad at him or mad at him again because we'll have another excuse to be, irritated because we will play the World Cup qualifiers, which are more important than the actual AFCON qualifiers next year. And those are slightly more difficult because there's more teams and stronger teams in our group. But if he does qualify for that, I'll suppose he will be anointed as a king. So somewhere in March and June next year, before the AFCON in December next year, we will play the qualifiers for the World Cup. And then that's why I'm saying we might be sad or happy extremely towards him, depending on how he does as he tries to qualify the team for the World Cup, which is the biggest stage of football.
All right, thank you for your time this morning. Nkululeko Nkewu is the founder of Itiski TV. We've just been recapping about that match and just the general performance of Bafana Bafana, which is on the up and up of late. And well done to Hugo Bruce and the rest of the team for qualification for that Africa Cup of Nations that's happening next year. And that brings us to 8 a.m. Time now for a news update with N. Musa. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, Minister speaks on withdrawal of the SABC Bowl and operations at Lily Mine to resume. Good morning. The Communications and Digital Technologies Minister, Solly Malatsi, says he's aware withdrawing of the SABC Bowl is disruptive, but believes this was justified given the weight of the matter. Last week, Malatsi withdrew the bowl, aimed foremostly to amend the finance model of the public broadcaster. This has raised anger amongst committee members, including Chairperson Kusela Diko. She called it a trigger-happy action aimed at disrupting and frustrating the process. Appearing before the committee for the first time since the withdrawal, Malatsi explained his decision.
The lack of a clear, credible financial model in the current version as it is, the extent to which the minister's powers are reflected in there, and the lack of a clear role for Parliament, again, in the appointment of the other board, and most importantly, the absence of a policy foundation that would then premise the policy on.
Mineral Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe says operations will resume at the Lily Mine in Mpumalanga. The mine made headlines in 2016 when the crown pillar between the roof of underground levels 3 and 4 collapsed. The rescue operations were hampered by the difficulty of determining the location of trapped mine workers, Prating Kambule, Yvonne Mnisi and Solomon Yarenda. The deceased families have since called for criminal investigations and for the remains of their loved ones to be recovered. Speaking in the Northwest, Mantashe said they will first recover the remains before operations begin.
We are opening it. Vantage Miners is trying to get the money back to open a decline shaft to reach at the container and take those bodies out. Then it's two things that you are going to get there. The mine will be open again with BAP roof and create employment and take the bodies out.
The Madibeng municipality in Brits in the northwest is facing a potential blackout. This is due to unpaid electricity and water bills totaling 129 million rand owed to the city of Tshwane as of the 31st of October. The debt has prompted Tshwane officials to issue a notice of disconnection. Energy expert Samson Mampweli weighs in on the matter.
In some cases, municipalities normally collect the revenue from selling of electricity, and then they redirect such revenue to other municipal services, especially where they see greater areas of concern by various creditors being expressed, and then they end up not paying Eskom for the bulk electricity purchases that they do.
The trial of the 1982 kidnapping and murder of the so-called COSAS 4 is expected to begin in the Johannesburg High Court today. Anti-apartheid activist Eustace Madikela, Peter Matabane and Faniana Nhlapo were killed by apartheid security police. Zandile Musi was severely injured. The accused Christian Sibert Rorich, a former security branch officer, and Tlumedi Framfali Pizza face charges of kidnapping, murder and crimes against humanity. The Companies and Intellectual Property Commission is encouraging informal traders to educate themselves about ways to regularize their operations. The Commission has emphasized that compliance is not only limited to the CIPC registration but extends to different regulators, including the local municipality for health and safety inspections. Senior Manager for Companies and Close Corporations at the CIPC, Advocate Krista Klokaus, says while the process is voluntary, it does provide a lot of transparency.
If they are foreign nationals, they have to go through, there's a specific platform that they have to use. That's different from locals, because we can validate all local citizens through the Department of Home Affairs that ease up the process. But unfortunately, foreign nationals, we can't. So they will have to go through what we call the FOV, Foreign Assurance. They need to supply us with the certified passport or a foreign identity document.
And finally, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has picked World Wrestling Entertainment co-founder and his transition co-chair, Linda McMahon, as his nominee for Education Secretary. A long-time Trump ally, McMahon led the Small Business Administration during Trump's first presidency and donated millions of dollars to his presidential campaign. Announcing his nomination on Truth Social, Trump said McMahon would use her decades of leadership experience and deep understanding of both education and business to empower the next generation of American students and workers. Recapping the top story, the Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Soli Malatsi says he's aware withdrawing of the SABC bill is disruptive but believes this was justified given the weight of the matter. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187. 25-year-old Chanel loves Outsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance designed for older cars. For her 2012 Hyundai i10 1.2, she only pays 458 rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million rand liability cover. That means if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rand. Add even more value with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy on the run through to Galouli. He's coming out of Germiston and Alberton this morning. Not only the roadwork, but also a broken down vehicle at Van Buren. So really big queues to start right back for Trekker Road on the N12 all the way up past Cement Factory and in towards that Bedford New Junction. Mike 1 and M2 roads getting through Crown up towards the Oxford Road exit and Park down a heavy. Willie Mandela, big backlogs into Santon Drive this morning. That run from sort of Hurlingham down into Parkmore, really extreme. The Mike 1's heavy. You'll sit from Brockfontein, bottom of the N1, all the way down to heavily congested Marlborough Drive off-ramp. Lots of delays around Midrand, Olifantsfontein, the old Olifantsfontein, Pretoria Main, Old Joburg, as the roadworks and traffic restrictions really seem to cut in and cause problems not only morning but also afternoon. It gets probably even heavier. Big traffic towards Pretoria on the N14, the Krugersdorp Highway. Pressure there from the R55 Pretoria West exit all the way through Brockfontein towards John Foster. If you're heading into Pretoria, exit the N14 at the R55 Pretoria West exit for a quicker run run through. Durban's N2 starting to ease, busy through Spaghetti Junction, busy towards Gateway, but it is looking a lot better than it was earlier this morning. And Cape Town, the R300 going north, a multi-vehicle pile-up by the old Paarl Road exit in Brackenfell. That has pushed the traffic queue going north back to Stellenbosch Arterial and causing a bit of an on-look delay going southbound. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's cricket. The Proteas are calling for longer Test Series matches. And in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton will race the final 3 Grand Prix of his Mercedes career. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8 on this Wednesday. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. We are into the third hour of today's edition, and I want to make as much time as possible for us to have the conversation this morning. So just a quick recap. I did tease out the issue around apartheid-era prosecutions, those prosecutions emanating from the TRC process for those apartheid-era criminals who did not get amnesty for their crimes that had a political objective for one reason or another. And the context for that is that we had a conviction that came through last week on Thursday. Johan Marey, a former apartheid police officer, for the killing of Keifas Nyoka. And today we have Ephraim Falapitsa going on trial for the killing of the Kosas 4. And I was wondering out loud whether in 30 years' time we'll be having this conversation, but about the Zondo Commission prosecutions. And I then asked how far with the prosecutions around the Marikana Falam Commission. I remember there were a few police officers that were on trial about 2 years ago. To be honest, I don't know how far that went. And what about the other prosecutions that were recommended there? I see some of you are engaging with that topic, and I'll take some of your voice notes as well as your WhatsApp calls. We talked about guns, the issue of gun control. 33 people are killed by guns in this country a day. That's the latest statistics. So those are some of the issues, as well as, of course, that matter playing itself out in Stilfontein and the whole issue of controlling abandoned mines. 6,000 of them, we are told, are out there that need to be controlled to prevent some of these ills that we see around illegal mining. Give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes, and the number to send those to is 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Okay, let's get this recipe right. Switch to S3 at 7 p.m. Add 1 scoop of mushendiki. Check. Mix in Team Green Pepper and Team Red Tomato, featuring 2 chefs and 2 contestants. Check. Blend in a limited budget per team and a mystery ingredient to add a bit of spice. Check. Set the timer for 20 minutes and voila, there you have it. A fresh episode of Ready Steady Cook South Africa on S3 every weeknight at 7 p.m. Channel your inner Salt Bay with Ready Steady Cook SA, Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's crank up the ideas refinery. Let's take some of your calls now. Romeo, I want to start with you because you're about to give us a State of the Nation address this morning in Mpumalanga. Tell us, where are we going as a country?
Good morning, Tula and SFM listeners. Thank you for picking up my call. Earlier on, you spoke about so many commissions were formed to investigate, including during the era of apartheid system and other corruption that have been taking place since our democracy until today. Those people are still not yet prosecuted. And if you look at it, in most cases, all these commissions being appointed are normally led by the experts of the law, usually possible from the judicial and the other legal experts as well. But the prosecution is a little bit hard because this has to do with the political connection, because it needs a political will for these people to be prosecuted. As long as there is no political will, no one is going to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Look at the Zondo Commission recently. It touches so many aspects of the government, including the Husasa issue that the people were given A, B, C, D, and you could see clear indication that once a person is accused of wrongdoing, should that person step aside from the government in terms of the drive that the government does not need corruption in the system for it to run smoothly, but no one has ever been prosecuted because we need political will.
Thank you for that. Romeo, they're talking about political will being key. And I suppose that talks to the allocation of resources to follow through on those recommendations, not necessarily the independence of a prosecuting body such as the NPA. I imagine that's what Romeo is talking about. Temba in Gqeberha, you want to talk to me about illegal mining. Good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning to South Africa. Look, the gaslighting or comments by the minister, the smoking out or smoking them out, cannot be supported. Really, those comments have to be condemned because they are not a representative of our government and the country and the constitution. Thulasizwe, put that aside. We cannot forget how South Africans in the Northwest and the Free State and partly in Johannesburg have been living a terrified life or lives by these illegal miners. Crime is rampant in those areas, shootings, and people cannot continue with their normal lives. And it's an issue that government must attend to, and a call was made and government is attending to it. That's it. But the greatest threat to South Africa is this illegal mining of our precious metals.
Sure.
Our economy is dependent heavily on our minerals. South Africans in their majority do not possess the sophisticated skills that are required. We must still go and queue to look for jobs. And these jobs are coming out of this economy, which is built on mining and other mineral resources. So South African government is correct to put foot down or take a strong stance in protecting not only gold, not only diamond, but our way of life.
Right.
I've been outside the country. I have seen in other countries how precious metals are just all over the show. And the unemployment in those countries, Senegal is a specific country, Zimbabwe is one next to us. Unemployment in those countries is hovering above 70%. So as South Africans, we cannot allow a situation where our gold is just all over the show. Our economy is built on our minerals.
Thank you for that, Temba.
It's correct to take a stance.
Thank you, Temba. That's Temba in Gqeberha there, talking about government putting its foot down on the issue of illegal mining. I suppose that has to be accompanied with policies that enable communities and ordinary citizens to also access the industry of mining. Artisanal mining is what it's called. And I wonder to what extent that policy is actually being implemented. Let's take a few voice notes also on that issue.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. This is Caroline from Cape Town. I wanted to make one other point about the wasted opportunity with all these abandoned mines. Many of the big companies do put funds into the bank account for rehabilitation, the big mining companies, after they close the mines, but they don't actually use that money, or government doesn't use that money to do the rehabilitation. And that land is very fertile and could be used for agriculture, and there's often a large water supply also to the mine, which means that it's ready to be used for agriculture. And yet we are wasting all these opportunities for young people to get jobs, for economic growth, on all of these hundreds and thousands of abandoned mines.
Yeah, and part of the difficulty is that until the MPRDA, Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, came into effect, apparently there was just no specific law that said you are required, after you're done mining, to actually do the rehabilitation of that land on which you mined. And that is what has led to those 6,000 abandoned mines, and something has got to be done to close that loop.
Thulasizwe Crispin here in Durban. Where is the Minister of Mineral Resources in all of this process? Why is he, Gwede Mantashe, not appearing at Stilfontein to explain how the constant series of failures by his department contributed directly and illegally to the current situation? When people throw this word illegal around, who are the different parties that are breaking the law? Zamas are breaking the law. What about the mine owners who constantly broke the law, failing to rehabilitate mines? What about the officials in his department who knowingly broke the law and not requiring public participation to protect communities in cases of mine failure?
Yeah, that's Crispin there asking, where is Mkwati? Where is the Minister of Mineral Resources, Gwede Mantashe? He's been talking about the issue of Lily Mine. Let's take a listen to what someone has to say about Minister Mantashe's comments on that.
Good morning, Thulasizwe and the SFM listeners. I've been listening to Gwede Mantashe about the Lily Mine workers. It's so hating what our government is doing, including those guys in the mining sector. How can they try to retrieve the body after so long? They were supposed to do that thing before the body decomposes. Now that they want to reopen the mine, they want to now starting to do what is right to the people, which is definitely wrong. They're just seeking for profits. They don't care about the lives of those mine workers. Now that after so long they want to dig them out, it's so paining. Brian Mabai, Project Land. Thanks for the great show to us.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just the varied inputs, particularly around the issue of mining and illegal mining, and the comments, of course, of the minister there, Gwede Mantashe, about the reopening of Lily Mine. All those years since it collapsed, with those workers caught up in that mine collapse.
Ethical is what defines our business. I think Outsurance does have integrity. They are not just there for the money, they're there to create a relationship. It's like a partner in business. It's the best thing we've ever done to switch over to Outsurance. It's a no-brainer.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Svali Weekend on a high note with Final Analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand. Courtesy of Diadora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
22 minutes after 8. Now, despite the psychedelic drug psilocybin showing promise as a new treatment for mental health conditions such as severe depression, experts say it is not risk-free. The South African Society of Psychiatrists says the hallucinogenic properties of psilocybin carry substantial risks of harmful side effects. Let's welcome into the conversation Dr. Gaguma Tsebula, who is a member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. I imagine, Doc, that there must be some basis for people believing that the psychedelic drug psilocybin holds some promise in responding to such mental health conditions as severe depression. Let's start there. What is the basis for people believing that it holds promise?
Good morning, Mguni. Thank you so much for having me. So yes, there definitely is emerging evidence, although it's still quite scanty at the moment. There is evidence that the use of psilocybin and MDMA can be beneficial, particularly to people that are struggling with what's called treatment-resistant depression, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. There are some countries like the Australians, for an example, and the Canadians as well, who have just recently released their guidelines regulating the permission of the use of psilocybin under extremely controlled conditions at this point in time.
So Australia and others that you mentioned are going their way of controlled use and regulated use. Should South Africa be looking in that direction?
May I quickly say, before I answer about the South African part, so while the Australians and the Canadians may have released these guidelines, it's still very strictly controlled. There are very strict guidelines in terms of who can get admitted into such a program and how long those people must be monitored, even after the therapy has lapsed. In South Africa, we are guided by the law. Unfortunately, psilocybin is still illegal in this country. We're also guided by the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority and how they've classified psilocybin. So briefly, SAPRA says that psilocybin is a Schedule 7 substance, which means that it's got an extremely high potential for abuse or dependence, and it's deemed to have limited scientific purposes. And this is based on what we see happening when a person has taken psilocybin. Briefly, nausea, anxiety, those can get worse. Blood pressure, temperature, that can go up. And in some instances, people can have what's called a bad trip, where it leads to panic attacks. In some instances, say days or weeks after they've last used the psilocybin, they can have what's called a flashback, where they experience the symptoms that they experienced when they were intoxicated with the substance. However, South Africa does have what's called the South African National Drug Master Plan, which does call for SAPRA from time to time to periodically reevaluate and reassess the scheduling of substances so that we can have better accessibility for scientific and medical purposes.
And here we're talking about what is commonly known as magic mushrooms, are we not?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So we get a wide variety of mushrooms. Some we can eat, like you see in your grocery stores. Some are poisonous and we can't eat those. But some do have psychoactive capabilities, and that basically means when you take those mushrooms, there's a particular effect that a person experiences on the brain. Psilocybin in those mushrooms, or magic mushrooms as you've called them, is the active ingredient that brings about this intoxication or this trip.
How do we close the gap that says, in your words as a society, that we don't yet have enough robust conclusive scientific evidence on the safety and efficacy of psychedelic therapy in this regard? How do we move from not having enough of that evidence to having enough? Is there work being done locally?
Excellent question, Mguni. So locally, and unfortunately, psilocybin remains prohibited, so we're not allowed to access it. But being part of a body of psychiatrists in South Africa and by extension the world, we do look out in countries where, some research has started. In Australia, for an example, they've started what's called the biggest research trial of psilocybin's efficacy for treatment-resistant depression. And we will see what comes out from them. We will see what comes out from Canada as well. In South Africa, I am aware that there are certain moves to try and have this scheduling of psilocybin changed. And I think once that happens, then we will also then begin to run some clinical trials. Of course, there always has to be a human ethics research committee that is involved in such research. It is happening in Australia, it is happening in Canada, and we're really hoping that we're able to see more and more evidence coming out, which then strengthens this sense that perhaps psilocybin might be helpful for treatment-resistant depression.
So with what we know now, Doc, where would we land up on the risk-harm balance at this very point? Perhaps in future our knowledge will improve, but where do we land at the moment?
It's still a bit sketchy, Mnguni. The Canadians do mention, the minister, Associate Minister for Mental Health and Addictions, Mike Ellis, did make a note that yes, they might have released these guidelines, but there is difficulty with people accessing the actual psilocybin. So the question then would be, where is it sourced from? At what doses? Those are the questions that need to be answered first. And then following that, we need to answer the questions of what are the long-term effects of psilocybin? How does it interact with other medications? How long must the therapy be? And for how long must we follow up these people? And these are questions that can only be answered in large randomized clinical trials, Mnguni. And these are what we call the gold standard. It's almost like me saying, this is my recipe for baking a cake. This is what I've done. And then I publish my findings in a journal. And then other colleagues are able then to look at that recipe and to see if they can replicate that. And only when that body of evidence really grows, then at that point in time, can we then say we can include psilocybin as part of the treatment for treatment-resistant depression.
All right. Thank you for your time and your insights. Really insightful conversation we've had this morning. That's Dr. Kaku Matsebula, who is a member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. And that brings us to 8:30. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the task team led by Northwest Community Safety MEC, Wessels Moereng, has begun the first phase of the retrieval operation to bring illegal miners to the surface in a Stilfontein mine. The Communications and Digital Technologies Minister, Solly Malatsi, says he's aware withdrawing of the SABC bill is disruptive but believes this was justified given the weight of the matter. And residents of Buffelskloof in Limpopo are concerned over what they say is failure by the Water and Sanitation Department to compensate them for their relocation. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Up to Galulis, it's a breakdown at Van Buren in amongst the long-term roadworks there. So out of Alberton and Germiston, heavy pressure on that run past Cement Factory on your way very slowly towards Galulis. Mike 1 from N1 Buccleuch down to very busy Marlborough Drive is heavily backed up four ways. N1 towards the Winnie Mandela off-ramp, still plenty of traffic light issues there. So heavy traffic north and south as you're trying to get off and get off the highway and get into that congested Winnie Mandela ramp system. The N14 onto the N1, here's one to avoid if you're driving to Pretoria. The Krugersdorp Highway back from just after the R55 Pretoria West exit all the way through to John Foster exit at that R55. Pick up some alternative routes to avoid the worst of that. R21 north up towards Olifantsfontein into the double lane roadwork section. That is still heavy. Durban's N2 has eased nicely. It's a good run through Monzamtoti into Prospect and going north between Spaghetti Junction and Umgeda Road's looking good, and it's easing up towards Gateway as well. Cape Town a busy Wednesday. The N1 inbound from Plattekloof Hill, N2 from Bunga Avenue, N5 from Kenilworth and Marine Drive, always worth an update there. Still very busy coming through from Bayside down towards the paddocks at Milnerton. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So Zai, I've got to tell you, when it comes to cricket, I'm in a bit of a dilemma, right? I find T20 way too short. And ODI, 50 overs, way too long. Feels to me like...
So what do you feel about Test cricket then?
We need something in between. And is that what Shukri Conrad is talking about? I imagine that's not what he's talking. He doesn't have my problems of attention span, right?
Clearly, no. He wants the longest formats to be played even longer, more than just 1 or 2 days. He feels it's the 2 days is like a cameo. It needs to be given the 5-star series it deserves. So that's the growing call for South Africa to play longer test series. Now the team is preparing for their 2-match series against Sri Lanka, and we'll have the regular captain Themba Bavuma returning from injury. There's definitely excitement brewing in the squad. They'll gather for a 2-day camp before heading to Durban, and the upcoming matches not only set the stage for a potential spot in the World Test Championship final, but also has hopes of Test cricket's revival in South Africa. Let's go to Bafana. They're cruising past South Sudan with a commanding 3-0 victory, having already secured their AFCON spot. This emphatic performance capped off an unbeaten qualifier run, setting the tone for next year's World Cup qualifiers. Bafana's victory was made even sweeter by their style, one which coach Hugo Bruges believes summed exactly how they want to play going forward.
When you play that kind of football, then it's very difficult for the opponent, because from everywhere there were players coming. One goes deep, the other comes back. It was always movement in the team, and we only lost a few seconds of focus. That was the moment in the first half when they got a chance. But for the rest, everybody stay focused and stay concentrated for the 90 minutes. And again, this is what you want as a coach. And I repeat it again, I'm very proud today.
More soccer news. The respected South African football coach Morena Ramorebole has added another feather to his cap by qualifying Botswana to the Africa Cup of Nations tournament for the first time in 12 years after their 1-1 draw with Egypt. The former Bafana coach in the COSAFA Cup is highly respected in Botswana as the head coach of Jwaneng Galaxy, a team he's taken to the CAF Champions League group stages twice. Technically, Ramorebole, his technical team and the players had to adjust their game in the second half, but they defended with discipline and got the desired result.
To make sure that we secure a point, which was not easy, honestly, but I think it was purely out of hard work that we managed to get the maximum points. And I think one thing that I think also needs to give our players credit for, I think they adjusted so well to the tactics and the demands of the game, and they were willing to go an extra mile, and that is why at the end of the day this generation has qualified for the 2025 AFCON.
On to golf, Paul Boshoff shrugged off a bogey on the first hole and marched on to an eventual round of 64 to tie Francois van der Walt, who was already in the clubhouse with a blemish-free 64 of his own on day one of the 7th tournament of the Big Easy season at the CRM Golf Club yesterday. Motorsport, Lewis Hamilton will race the final 3 Grand Prix of his Mercedes career after the 7-time world champion raised doubts about his immediate future in Brazil earlier this month. The British driver, who is moving to Ferrari next season, is understood to have been in Mercedes' factory preparing on the simulator ahead of Saturday's Las Vegas Grand Prix. The team confirmed the 39-year-old will address the media, and Hamilton, of course, endured one of the worst performances of his glittering career at the Brazilian Grand Prix, crossing the line in 10th place. And finally, Rafa Nadal. He'll be playing his last match, and that came to an end in the quarterfinal stage of the Davis Cup. And Nadal's final match would be the opening singles rubber of the tie, which he lost 6-4, 6-4 to Botis van der Zandloop before Carlos Alcaraz leveled matters with a straight sets win over Talon Griekspoor. However, Alcaraz and Marcel Granollers were beaten by van der Zandloop and Wesley Koolhof in the deciding doubles rubber, which ended Spain's participation and bringing down the curtain on Nadal's glittering career. That's how we bring down the curtain on the Morning Brief Sport. We'll have more around 12:30 with John Helica. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's bring in Ndawuleng Lechela once again. So the ports are boiling over, Ndawuleng, the two ports that is, 35 billion rand mark, you tell us.
That's right, Sulas, and more South Africans just tapping into their retirement funds. SARS has confirmed that over 35 billion rand has been withdrawn from saving pots since September when the two-pot system came into play. Now, the increased withdrawals come at a time also where spending usually picks up. I mean, we have Black Friday coming up, as well as the festive season shopping period also coming into play. So as of Monday, SARS received over 2 million directive applications and over 1.9 million directives. The steady increase in tax directive applications reflects the economic challenges many households face. Breaking down those numbers now, 169,509 applications were declined due to various reasons, including system failures, incorrect ID numbers, and wrong tax numbers. These are issues SARS has raised before. Additionally, 41,523 directives were declined due to insufficient funds or incorrect codes, and 28,525 directives were cancelled by taxpayers who changed their minds. It's also worth noting that APSA forecasted up to 78 billion rands in two-pot withdrawals in the first year, which seems more likely to happen. Other banks have been a bit more conservative, expecting between 30 to 40 billion rand in withdrawals. That mark has been passed because we now are sitting with withdrawals of over 35 billion rands.
Yeah, and of course the sub in its high withdrawal scenario talks about the possibility of up to 100 billion rand being withdrawn. And in the meantime, Ndawuleng, then it becomes an issue of how quickly you can turn around as a pension fund manager. We've been hearing from Old Mutual about their rate of paying out.
That's right, Thulas. And Old Mutual has also warned of the potential negative impact on its net client cash flows by year-end, pointing to increased two-pot withdrawals and further low-margin customer outflows. Since the introduction of the retirement regime, the company has made tons of payouts, with 93% of the 240,000 claims submitted already being processed, totaling about 2.4 billion rands. Old Mutual has seen a significant shift towards digital adoption when it comes to the two-part applications, with 99.7% of withdrawal applications coming through WhatsApp. So it's as easy as just taking your phone and going onto WhatsApp and, chatting to a consultant. Now, this also comes alongside its trading update. The insurance and investment group reported 19% rise in inflows fueled by growth in its wealth management division, and Old Mutual's unit trust inflows in Africa region saw upbeat growth thanks to a productive agency force and the introduction of the dollar unit trust fund in East Africa. But the group also experienced increased outflows in Old Mutual Investment, Old Mutual Corporate, and Old Mutual Africa regions, which impacted net client cash flow. So a pretty mixed performance for the group.
All right. Lastly then, Ndawuleng, what kind of a Wednesday can we look forward to when trading resumes in about 20 minutes on the JSE? Also, recap of what we can expect elsewhere.
So the JSE is in for another mixed start, Thulas, as traders might take a wait-and-see approach here at home, as we have the local inflation print as well as the SARB's rates decision coming up. Currency markets in the meantime remain volatile, with emerging market currencies being hit by geopolitical tensions. The rand trading at 18.05 to the dollar at the moment. Then moving over to Wall Street, futures are in the green ahead of Nvidia's results. That earnings report, one to look out for insights on the state of the AI industry. And in checking in on Asian markets, those stocks on track to end the day mostly in the red, with traders eyeing developments playing out between Russia and Ukraine.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndawuleng Lechela. She's been watching all things to do with the economy, business, and the markets for you over the last 3 hours here on The Morning Brief.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Let's shift our focus to this story now. The Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Mimi Gondwe, will today launch a public awareness campaign against illegal and bogus colleges in Johannesburg. The Deputy Minister says she has noted the increasing number of colleges that are illegal, unregistered, or offer courses that they are not credited for. Dr. Gondwe joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you, Doc, and I've got to thank you for your time. So tell me about the extent of the problem of bogus colleges, unregistered colleges, fly-by-night colleges as we know them.
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to your listeners on SAFM. Thank you so much for having me. The problem, remains quite prevalent despite us as a department having these awareness campaigns, almost every year. With the new academic year around the corner, we thought, let's have this campaign, which is aimed at raising awareness amongst parents, amongst students, and the general public, mainly about the risk associated with enrolling in these illegal or bogus, institutions, whether they be private colleges or private institutions of higher education.
What's behind the proliferation and people still falling for these bogus colleges? Is it a matter of demand for space? Is it a matter of difficulty of compliance by private education providers, or an issue of just lack of awareness by potential students?
I think it's a little bit of both. Look, the lack of awareness is really, quite disturbing in the sense that we've constantly said that parents or learners that are not aware that want to verify whether a college is a bogus one or a legal one, or whether it's offering accredited programs or courses, can always contact the department because on our website we have two registers. We have a register of private colleges and another which lists private institutions of higher education, and so we are very open about the fact that you can verify on the website. We even have a call center, that you can call, the department's call center, and you can actually call to verify whether a college is illegal or it's a bogus one. And so, I tend to worry that perhaps we are not educating people enough, and of course there is that desperation. We only have 26 public universities, and then we have 50 TVET colleges, and they can only take so many learners. And we recognize the role that private institutions of higher education play in terms of absorbing those learners that couldn't get into your public institutions. But we just want to call on parents and learners alike to be vigilant about enrolling in illegal or bogus institutions, private institutions of higher learning. And so I just want to touch on some of the telltale signs around how to spot whether a college is legit or not. So, for example, one could look at the quality of the infrastructure. You could look at the level of professionalism, whether there's a refund policy, the details around the assessment policy of that particular institution, the due dates for tests and assignments, the qualifications of staff. So the quality of teaching and learning is usually a very strong indicator around whether or not this college is legal and is registered with the department and is offering accredited courses.
But Doc, by that time it's too late. By the time you discover the quality of learning and teaching, it feels to me as if there should be some kind of outward expression of confidence from your side as the department, some kind of seal and a mark of approval that is easily accessible. It's one thing to say to people they must check and communicate with the department. You and I know that generally many people will find that to be extra admin. There must be something that says, here's the seal of approval as you approach the institution, even from afar, to know.
Yes, I was just about to say that. So registered, private colleges and private institutions of higher learning are required to also display the registration number or the accreditation details. on the premises, so that people are able to see that indeed this particular college or institution is registered with the department. So, Thulasizwe, what we've also done as a department, we've taken steps to regulate the sector. We've tried to regulate the sector in a number of ways. Firstly, via the relevant acts and regulations. The Higher Education Act, which was promulgated in 1997, the Continuing Education and Training Act, which was promulgated in 2006. And coupled with this legislation, there's an administrative framework and standard operating procedures in relation to the registrations of institutions. And we constantly monitor and evaluate these institutions. I also want to emphasize that accreditation is also part of the monitoring and evaluation, and is also a prerequisite for registration. And we require that private institutions comply with legislations and regulations and the provisions of the legislation and regulations. So, for instance, private institutions have to submit audited financial statements and tax clearance certificates to the department in order to prove their financial viability. So, and then non-compliant institutions are then placed under notice with the possibility of cancellation, and unregistered institutions, we refer them to law enforcement agencies such as SAPS. So we really encourage learners and parents to visit our website, www.dhet.gov.za, because there we have the register of private colleges and of private institutions. We also have a list that is publicly available of bogus institutions, institutions that we've listed as being illegal or bogus. So, and then we also encourage learners, Thulasizwe, to do some of their research before they enroll. Because the problem with enrolling is that you run the risk of wasting time, resources, getting a qualification that's not even recognized, and you miss employment opportunities. And we know that we have a high level of unemployment, especially amongst young people. So we understand the need for them to get access to higher education, but we are asking them to be vigilant and to also play their part.
Gotcha.
Do your research. Speak to learners that are enrolled there before you enroll.
Thank you for your
10
time.
or more learners. Yes, just to verify. Yes.
Thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Mimi Gondwe, who is the Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training.
Thank you so much.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heading into Galulis this morning on a couple of routes. A breakdown on the N3 North at Van Buren's been there a while. It means it's very heavy coming off the N12 Alberton through Elan's past Cement Factory and all the way up deep into Bedfordview. So that's a heavy backlog N3 North. And then the N12 and R24 routes coming to Galulis from Ekurhuleni, driving in from Boksburg or the airport. There is a crash just before the interchange, so delays on both of those routes. William Mandela on to Santon Drive, returning to Parkmore towards Santon. That stays heavy. Mike 1, Buccleuch down to Marlborough Drive has been a mission to get through all morning on your way to Santon, and the R21 North queuing heavily up towards the Olifantsfontein exit. That's through the roadworks double lane closure opposite Tembisa. N14 onto the M1 towards John Foster. The big delays that we had there earlier moving towards Pretoria have eased up. Durban easing up nicely. In fact, if you're leaving them on some Toti on the N2 North, it's a good clear run. Don't forget going south as you come off at Joyner Road. In the afternoons, the R102 Andrew Zondo is being given over to the southbound flow, so you can't come out of Amanzam Toti on Andrew Zondo and go north into Prospecton from 3 p.m. until 8 p.m. So it's really alleviated a lot of the southbound pressure, but it means a diversion and a bit of disruption if you're trying to go north. Rather that, I guess, than oncoming traffic, which you saw last week. Cape Town, very busy. N1 inbound, still backing up from Plattekloof Hill towards the city centre territory. The R43 going in and out of Hermanus remains open. There are fires that are burning in that area, so subject to change, but at this stage the R43 is open and just staying in that area. Botrefia to Caledon on the N12 on the N2 route, still some roadworks about halfway between those two towns, and really does have you stopping and starting with a couple of stop-go controls. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. With crime boss the Dean behind bars, the outlaws are moving on with their lives until one of their own returns with a deadly secret, hurling them back into mortal danger. Outlaws Season 3, Fridays at 9 p.m. Then, 3 fishing fanatics embark on the ultimate extreme fishing trip to attempt to catch some of the most elusive, hard-to-catch fish across the globe. Fishing Impossible, Fridays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's start with a couple of voice notes and one or two calls about the issue of gun control, which came up during conversations this morning. Let's listen to this now.
It's Chris in Camperdown. Have we also looked at what the private security companies are carrying? The very high caliber guns. Definitely, there has to be an explanation why they are allowed to do so. Can somebody, either from the police or gun control, whichever department, comes and explains to us? We definitely cannot allow this lawlessness and gun-free society kind of situation.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's Chris in Camperdown, Mkambatini. Let's listen to another one also on the same issue.
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to the listeners. This is Pilani Kumalo in Boksburg in Gauteng. Look, Thulas, the law-abiding citizens in South Africa are not a problem when it comes to owning of guns. The problem is the people that are owning guns illegally. That's where this so-called Gun-Free South Africa organization should be concentrating on. Because remember, if you remove guns from those law-abiding citizens, you are making them vulnerable because criminals will always have guns. You understand? That is a fact that they also know. Criminals are not abiding by any law. So if you're advocating for removal of guns from law-abiding citizens, it means you are making them vulnerable to criminals that you already know that they will always have guns. They will never surrender them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thulas.
It's a difficult one, is it not? It becomes something of a vicious cycle. Where do you start? Do you start by removing illegal firearms from those who have them, or do you start by imposing more stringent controls in the legal ownership of firearms? It does become a bit of a vicious cycle because, as you say, if people are going to be vulnerable, it says to me you need to address the issue at the heart of it, at the heart of that vulnerability, which is the issue of crime and proliferation of guns in general. Matibang, on the same issue, gun control. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. On this issue of gun control, I think this so-called gun-free South Africa, I mean, these people need their heads to be checked, really, because the criminals are not controlled by any law. They defy the law. They will always have guns. Start there. Just start there. Not long ago, there was a guy there at SAF, Aldrin Sempier.
Yes.
He once interviewed one of the journalists who exposed the smuggling of AK-47 through the northwest border. And it was all over the social media. I don't know why the government didn't do something about it. It's a known fact that in the sponsor shops or the foreigners, they are armed with AK-47s. The government does nothing about it. So we South Africans, who are the law-abiding, have the right to own guns because we don't go out there and threaten people. We know we are being controlled by the... Yeah, and lastly,
Matibang, I do need to move on, unfortunately. That's Matibang there in Johannesburg talking about the issue of gun control. Let me bring in Luba Balo. Luba, good morning. You want to talk to me about Bafana Bafana?
Thulas, man, how's it? Good morning, man.
Good morning, man.
I was at the Cape Town Stadium yesterday. Yeah. I took my son with. He's 11 years old. First Bafana live match. It was packed. It was goosebumps all over. Bafana was classy. The fireworks, the Mexican wave.
I'm seeing the visuals right now, on screen.
Oh man, it was. I've never experienced that in Cape Town Stadium before with Bafana. It was great, man. It was great, and thanks to the coach for bringing in the Cape Town bass players. It was epic, man.
That's beautiful.
That stadium was just.
That's lovely.
You know what? I'm just thankful to the Bafana, the coach. I just want this to continue. And then we need to stop the monopoly of Durban and Joburg always hosting these Bafana games, We need to spread it all over the country. They need to experience this.
Thank you, Luba. Thank you for that. Now I wish I had ended off with Lubabalo there on a very high note. But in any case, let's continue dealing with the other realities that we face. Stembele in Flagstaff, good morning to you. You want to talk about illegal miners?
Yes, Thulas. Good morning.
Ngiyaphila kunjani ba?
Thulas, before I get on with my comment, I would like to ask you a question, and answer that question if you can answer, and don't if you cannot. We are always told, definitely, but obviously by the media platforms, that the illegal miners, whenever they are carrying on with their operations, they carry firearms of a very high caliber. Is it true or not?
There have been reports that say there are firearms, and police have said that they do find firearms. And occasionally you and I have seen instances where there have been shootings and incidents of violence between gangs that do engage in this activity. So I would say that the evidence we have at hand suggests that it is true.
Thank you very much, Toos. And then if that is the case, we will all understand the statement by the minister in presidency, Kumbuzo Ntshavheni, when she says these illegal miners must be knocked out. Why I do agree with her is that because those illegal miners, mostly they are foreign. They are.
All right, we do seem to be having a bit of a challenge with the call from Stembele in Flagstaff there. Something is happening with Stembele's line. It does seem to be dropping. Let me take a quick voice note that has to do with issues of convictions, and I think it's around the issues that I was raising about apartheid-era prosecutions as well as prosecutions related to other commissions of inquiry.
Hi, Chula. This is Samara in Cape Town. The low conviction rate for child abuse at 4% is not even the only shocking stat in South Africa. Our murder rate, from what I can deduce, has a 10% or even less conviction rate. 90% of murders in South Africa never get solved. So the government, which is now the government of national unity, the biggest scandal is that they are not willing or not even able to tackle our high murder rate and our low conviction rate for murder.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Samora. And as I've said, I mean, none of this is normal. There's nothing normal about the violence, the levels of violence that we face in this country. And I came out a few weeks ago and I said we need a war on crime. Forget the connotations that it evokes in the United States, mass incarceration and the likes. I don't believe that declaring a war on crime in South Africa would carry the same kind of connotations. You would just need to marshal the resources and say enough is enough. We can't be having people dying as if we are in the midst of armed conflict on a daily basis in this country. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for your engagement and thank you for listening. Thanks to the team that put it all together. The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana is up next here on SAFM after the news. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, retrieval operations in Stilfontein underway, and Minister speaks on withdrawal of the SABC bill. Good morning. The task team led by Northwest Community Safety MEC Wessels Morueng has begun the first phase of the retrieval operation to bring illegal miners to the surface in a Stilfontein mine. Illegal miners are refusing to exit the previously rehabilitated Shaft 11. Yesterday, the mine rescue team assessed the shaft. Itumeleng Khajane reports.
The mine rescue teams arrived yesterday, and then theirs was to assess the shaft and look at what they should be bringing to start with their retrieval operation of those who are still underground. We understand that the first thing that they are going to be doing in the first few days will be clearing of the site, so that when those who will be coming through to retrieve those who are still underground finally come here, they will be able to find the area having been cleared. However, one must emphasize that the official retrieval operation hasn't started. This is something that is being done in preparation to the retrieval operation.
The Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi says he's aware withdrawing of the SABC bill is disruptive, but believes this was justified given the weight of the matter. Last week, Malatsi withdrew the bill aimed foremostly to amend the finance model of the public broadcaster. This has raised anger amongst committee members, including Chairperson Kusela Diko. She called it a trigger-happy action aimed at disrupting and frustrating the process. Appearing before the committee for the first time since the withdrawal, Malatsi explained his decision.
The lack of a clear, credible financial model in the current version as it is, the extent to which the minister's powers are reflected in there, and the lack of a clear role for Parliament, again, in the appointment of the other board, and most importantly, the absence of a policy foundation that would then premise the policy on.
Gauteng Economic Development MEC Lebogang Mahile has issued a stern warning to South African citizens against registering spaza shops on behalf of foreign nationals. He says the public needs to be educated on the dangers of doing so. Mahile says foreign nationals will be required to provide valid documentation from the Department of Home Affairs, giving them authorization to operate business in South Africa.
And the eligibility of a business visa is that a foreign national must invest a prescribed amount of about 5 million into an existing business, or provide a business plan with evidence of 5 million capital contribution, and says foreign nationals may establish a business which is of national interest to South Africa. This re-registration is part of the steps to make sure that we make sure, and that's why when people are found to have transgressed, the law will take its course. But you can't prevent people from doing wrong things if they are mischievous. That's why we must continuously educate them.
Residents of Buffelskloof in Limpopo are concerned over what they say is failure by the Water and Sanitation Department to compensate them for their relocation. They were moved during the construction of the multi-billion rand De Hoop Dam. The community say they were relocated in 2015 with a promise of over 10 million rand in compensation. Affected residents had this to say.
They promised us that we enlist our livestock, cows, cats and houses so that they can compensate us for them. They told us they would rebuild our houses and our cows and give us a stand. They said they will compensate us and provision water for us. To this day, we have not received those funds.
We have left our children's grave on the other side because they promised to compensate us. I am very unhappy with what they are doing. They did not even provide us with title deeds for our houses we live in.
And finally, developed nations have to put over $100 billion in the new collective quantified goal on climate finance, a bit higher than the last amount. There will be two figures agreed upon, the inner layer, which is expected to be slightly over $100 billion, and also the outer layer, $1.5 trillion. Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment Minister, Dr. Dion George, says it's still too early to predict the outcomes of the negotiations.
We all agreed, certainly South Africa's position and the developing economy position and the Africa position, is that the loss and damage fund needs to actually speed up. We need to have more money in it because we're seeing the impact on climate change. It is accelerating and Africa is very heavily impacted. So yes, of course it is concerning, but that is being discussed and negotiated.
Recapping the top story, the task team led by the Northwest Community Safety MEC Wessels Morueng has begun the first phase of the retrieval operation to bring illegal miners to the surface at a mine in Stilfontein. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by OUTsurance Essential. Get a code today, SMS card to 43187.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. We do not tolerate any kind of discrimination. Disability Awareness Month 2024. Only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
47-year-old Abner loves OUTsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. For his 2006 Opel Corsa Utility 1.4, he only pays 253 rands a month. With OUTsurance Essential, accidental claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Top this up with motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with OUTsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Talking Point on SAFM, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
In the course of writing of the interim constitution, which the Deputy President was negotiating with a variety of people, and I was the technical committee that wrote it down, that why do we have to have a reconciliation clause in our constitution? Now, all of you know, I spent a lot of time with Dr. Madam. I was one of the favorite people he liked talking to and debating with and spending time with. So, Tata, why are we doing this? Why are we writing in a clause in the interim constitution, a post-amble? He looks up and he looks down and he takes out that thick finger of his. We had a very thick finger. And says, Mame, we are buying peace so that we may reconstruct our country, so that we may be truly free. Now that answer has stayed with me ever since. And that is why it is not only about reconciliation, it's not only about forgiving, it is also about transformation. Equalizing, repairing, in other words, the devastation of colonialism and apartheid. And he understood that. He understood that there's the one side where you give when you say, I forgive you. I embrace you for the horrible things you did. But the other side that never escaped him, and this answer he gave me, we are buying space in order to free our people and reconstruct our country. Apartheid was divisive. It saw us different. It parceled out public goods unequally. It was unjust, it was unfair. It singled out people because they were gay, singled out people because they were not Christian, singled out people because they were women. Apartheid was horrible, it was divisive. Honesty is vital in public life. It is everything. I was a judge. I knew that honesty must be the foundation of what I do, what I wake up to.
Honesty is vital in public life. Justice Dikgang Moseneke, former Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, is who leads us into our show today with the opening motivation. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of The Talking Point. I'm Khomotso KG Mwekezi. I'm in for Kathy Mutlatlana on SFM as we lead the conversation that moves you. And please welcome, you're welcome to join in whenever you want. 086 0002032 086 0002032. I love the line where he says apartheid was divisive, right? SMS 41391 41391 coming to you at 150. WhatsApp 0614104107. On X we are at SFM Radio, and you can hashtag SFM Talking Point. Coming up on the program this Wednesday, we open the lines, of course, for you between now and 10 o'clock on that 086 0002032 number, 086 0002032 number, and we take a deep dive into that Human Sciences Research Council report. I'm sure if you've been watching television and radio or listening to radio in the last couple of days, you've heard of that report that was commissioned. The Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Thulasizwe Simelane, says that inaugural gender-based violence study has given insight into how people in different types of relationships experience gender-based violence. She was reacting to the findings of a study that was released on Monday by the Human Sciences Research Council, which revealed that more than 7 million South African women have experienced physical and emotional violence in their lifetime. 7 million. 7 million South African women have experienced physical and emotional violence in their lifetime. And one of the highlights was also that 70% of South African men would like to see the women in their lives obey them. So we're using the hour between 10 and 11 to find out how we should interpret the report, seeing that we're in 2024, and how do we balance cultural, societal, religious norms that dictate how, the issue of consent is negotiated. So we're going to have a conversation with Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo, the Director in Wise for Africa. Xolelwa Kashe Katia is an acting project leader for Indlulamiti Scenarios Trust. Javu Baloyi, spokesperson for the Commission for Gender Equality. Dr. Mpumi Zungu is research director in the Public Health Societies and Belonging, which is the research division of the Human Sciences Research Council. So we'll do a deep dive into that study between 10 and 11 and 12, 11 and 11:45, effectively, African Agri Council is unlocking $1 billion American in vetted agri projects at the African Agri Investment Indaba's Investor Discovery sections. The African continent, as you know, is home to 60% of the world's uncultivated Arabi land, and yet it remains largely untapped. To achieve food security and boost agricultural productivity, significant investment is needed. And according to a study by McKinsey and Company, $8 billion is required for improved storage, while $65 billion still in US dollars will be needed for irrigation, and $1 trillion to realize Africa's agricultural capabilities. And to address this, the African Agri Council is hosting investor discovery sessions at the African Agri Investment Indaba in Cape Town. It ends today, this Wednesday, the 20th, and these sessions will connect investors and financiers and stakeholders with over $1 billion in vetted agricultural projects. And we're going to talk to Gilles Metadal, who's the chairman of the African Agri Council Advisory Board, and Nuno Santos, who is FAO Investment Center Deputy Director. We end the show with the book reading I Wish Someone Had Told Me. What's on your mind? Congratulations again to Bafana Bafana on their 3-0 victory against South Sudan yesterday. Bafana Bafana are extremely impressive. Very, very impressive. And of course, we still have that stalemate that we have in Stilfontein. That is not finished. And South African football great Lucas Masterpieces Moripe has died. Did you know that? He passed. He was confined to a wheelchair in the last couple of years, apparently after suffering a mild stroke that was worsened by the effects of a long-term knee injury that he'd had after he had stopped playing football in the 1980s. So condolences to his family, to his loved ones, to his friends. I don't think you can love football in South Africa and not know Lucas Masterpieces Moripe. He passed away. So I want to hear what's on your mind on 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032. We come back with your calls.
It's Black Friday. You're ready to score that brand new shiny smart TV you've had your eyes on. The deals are insane. 4K resolution, endless apps, the works. You rush to the store, grab your dream TV, and then wham! Wait, what's this? A TV license? Oh no, you didn't pay for it. Now you're stuck with possible penalties and no TV. Avoid the heartache and pay your TV license before you rush off to your new love this Black Friday. It's quick, easy, and way cheaper than penalties. Pay your TV license today at tvlic.co.za. Act now and enjoy your new TV without any worries.
Here's what real clients say about Outsurance. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
They give me lesser amount for my car. 523 rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
Give Outsurance a call. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. You are listening to KG Mwekezi on SFM.
Welcome back. It's 19 past 9. Aliko Mahigeng. Hi, Ali. Morning.
Good morning, Sister KG and SFM listeners.
Good morning.
Yeah, Sister KG, I want to comment on the issue of the TRC. I think there's one R which is short there. It could have worked if they could have put in another R.
I'm listening.
That R would have been restitution. How do I come to your house, I steal your car, I come back to your house with driving your same car and reconcile with you and drive again off with your car. And then I said, me and KG are now reconciled.
I hear.
Yeah, so the thing is, for the truth to be told, truth and reconciliation needs to include restitution. For justice to be done, for all of us to be saved by the Creator, somebody had to die on the cross. Penalty must be paid. For justice to become real justice, for salvation to be. He said to that guy, to Zacchaeus, now salvation has come. After Zacchaeus practiced and told him about restitution, I'm taking back the things I've stolen.
I like your analogy about coming to my house and stealing my car and driving off with my car. I think that's a fantastic analogy. And then coming back again, to visit me with the same car.
And then people ask you, hey, KG, what time? Me and KG are reconciled.
I think that's a fantastic analogy.
Okay, thanks. Have a blessed day, my sister.
Thanks. Have a great day, Ali. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Ngonde in Cape Town. Hi, Ngonde. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course. Good morning.
Okay. Morning, KG.
Morning.
I know you're well. I want to surprise. Then I want to comment on what I think is of national importance. All right? This is based on what I heard this morning. That the miners that were trapped 9 years ago, in Lily Farm, somewhere there, Yvonne Nisi, Pretty Kambule, and Solomon Kambule.
Yes,
you
yes.
know, they will be rescued. But obviously it will be, you know, bodies that are deceased. Anyway, Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Mineral Resources, is saying that will happen. But what I want to be uppermost in the minds of politicians, whether they are in local government, provincial, national, including Gwede Mantashe, is this. In uppermost their mind must be the acronym SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. In other words, the promises politicians make must end at the time of campaign, because invariably they overpromise and underdeliver. Now, with these SMART goals in the uppermost of their mind, they must be measured in what they said, right? For instance, Gwede Mantashe, in my understanding, will score a lousy 2 out of 10, you know, which is 20%. Or in the olden apartheid days, he would get an H, all right? In other words, the H would be hopelessly failed. Lastly, KG, I want, when I'm eventually buried, because none of us, you know, are immortal, I want a revolutionary death. KG, bye-bye.
I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a clip that we played, Baba Ngonde. There was a clip that we played in Parliament last week, an exchange that happened between an EFF MP and the Deputy Speaker about the structure. You know, they're in a tent now. Since Parliament was burnt down, and how the EFF MP said to the Speaker of Parliament that he, you know, when if they don't feel safe in that structure because they don't feel that that structure is steady, and as a result, you know, comparing it to the things that have happened to buildings in the city of Cape Town, and saying they won't die a revolutionary death. And I think that's where Ngonde gets the analogy that when he dies, he wants a revolutionary death. David in Maritzburg. Hi, David. Do you want to talk spaza shops and the bylaws around them? Morning, David. Hi.
Yes, yes, I heard you saying yesterday that you are keen to invite the Minister of Small Business for her to clarify certain things. I'm also supporting that, to say if she comes, or the DG in that office, can they please clarify the issue of this 5 million investment that should be paid by foreigners or invested by foreigners when they before they operate businesses in South Africa? Because for me, if there is a clause like that, then the question will be, how many of these foreigners have paid that 5 million?
Have done what? Say that?
Have paid the 5 million investment. The first thing is to clarify whether this 5 million investment, does it exist really on the Constitution? If it does, then how many of these foreigners have paid that 5 million? If not, why they have not paid that 5 million? Secondly, one would like to commend the president of the Youth League for also raising a voice for the president to address us as the nation on the issue of...
the president of the ANC Youth League, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And also to say to him and the Youth League, they must become the vanguard, put pressure on the president again to fire useless ministers such as Stella Ndabeni, who has failed us, the South Africans, and Gwede Mantashe. Because those ministers have failed. One caller told
so when you declare it a failure, you declare it a failure based on?
It's clear, KG, on the issue of Plaza Shop, it's a crisis. But having a minister there who's supposed to do a job and ensure that what we're experiencing currently shouldn't have happened if she was doing a job. On Gwede Mantashe, what is happening on the illegal mines? It's clear that he has also failed too as a minister. Another caller said he'll give him 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I also concur with that caller.
Hopeless.
So the youth league. So I'm saying to the youth league must become the vanguard and put pressure on the president to fire fresh ministers. You know, because at the end of the day they are failing the movement. You know, because whatever failures they're doing, they reflect badly on the ANC. So the youth league must become the vanguard, put pressure on the president. We are not happy with the minister so and so. You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, David. Have a great day. But Nhlanhla, you're in KwaZulu-Natal. You'd like clarity from the new Labour Minister on the on UIF. Hi, Nhlanhla. Morning. Happy Thursday. Wednesday. Where are we? Wednesday. Hi, Nhlanhla. Angisazi. Ngiyaphila unjani wena?
Hayi kuhle my sister. My sister, firstly, on the issue of Minister of Labour, the new Labour amendments kuzoba issue ye-UIF, kuzoba issue ye-employment equity report. Because for issue ye-UIF, my sister, i-policy again and I'm going to contribute for 30 years. You are only going to get money for 4 years. 26 years becomes a tax of government. To make that policy. Yes. So, Minister, actually, I would like her to come on radio and SAPC allow us to engage with her, not to SAPC. I engage with her on behalf of us, and to express ourselves. With the issues that we experience.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, sikuzwileke.
Yeah, ngiyabonga mama.
Ngiyabonga nami Nhlanhla. Thanks. Have a great day. Here are some voice notes.
Hi KG, good morning. Mafuta again. KG, I always says that the qualities of a good leader are always seen during the times of crisis. I'm talking about those sitting or meeting in Harare to deliberate issues on the region. I think the fate of this region lies in their hands. The Mozambican issue stored in stalemate, KG, they have to find a solution as to the way forward. There are so many other issues, KG, that need direction in leadership. I think and I wish those in Harare, meeting in Harare, would find a direction to save the lives of the region and to maintain democracy and peace in the region, KG.
KG, good morning. I'm Takata in Cape Town. Apartheid was divisive and the democracy is homicide. KG, I heard there is the plan of eliminating guns or maybe to just call South Africa to be a crime-free country or society, something of that nature. KG, our government, I don't hear any punitive measures that is made by our government. Should they find a criminal in the possession of unlicensed firearm? For instance, those one of Thulasizwe, after that 18 people murder, they were found with guns. Now the government is waiting for the ballistic test. We don't hear any result up to now. There's supposed to be a punishment for someone who found in a position of illegal firearm, whether he kills someone or not.
Good morning. In the headlines, the task team led by Northwest Community Safety MEC Vessels Murweng has begun in the first phase of the retrieval operation to bring illegal miners to the surface at a Stilfontein mine. As statistics, South Africa prepares to release the October consumer price inflation numbers at 10 o'clock this morning. Analysts anticipate inflation could drop as low as 3% from the 3.8% recorded in September this year. And lawyers for the Archbishop Desmond Tutu Intellectual Property Trust has informed the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation that their participation in the Global Assembly of World Movement for Democracy event funded by the US government is not in accord with the late Archbishop's values. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Svali weekend on a high note with final analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Theodora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hashtag SFM Talking Point.
Good morning, KG. Makuswanke from Jabulani in Soweto. KG, yesterday, as it was International Men's Day, I was given an opportunity to open in prayer. And what I prayed for men for yesterday was that actually, as the scripture reference that I used, it was as a man thinks in his heart, that is the man. So the word heart there speaks about our subconscious mind, according to Hebrew. That's what they're referring to. They're not referring to our heart. They actually referring to our subconscious mind. So yesterday, as I was praying for us men that we should be responsible on what we're letting into our minds, because it filters down to our subconscious mind, and hence we have such challenges with men behaving the way they behave, behaving the way we behave. You know, I mean, it's not impressive. We don't have an impressive credit record the way we behave. So yeah, thank you.
Morning, KG and the team. KG, mine is that here in Mpumalanga in Barberton, 3 workers were trapped underground while working. 2017 March, until today, no effort to bring them up. But illegal miners are refusing to resurface in Northwest. Then, boom, everyone is statazelling about them. Yo, South Africa.
I love the word tatazelling. I love the South African way of thinking. Apparently it was International Men's Day yesterday. Did you know it was International Men's Day yesterday? And I also saw Begicele. I always find it fascinating that when Begicele was minister, we complained a lot, and I found it quite interesting that, now journalists are going back to him to get analysis from him on what he would do with the situation in Stelfontein, and yet with the same people who are saying he wasn't good enough. I find us so completely strange. But I also, you know what I find strange about the listeners of this radio station, right? Is how none of you want to comment on that study that was done by the Human Sciences Research Council about the fact that, for example, in the last 12 months, one of the things the study says is in the last 12 months, at least a million women in South Africa experience sexual violence at the hands of their intimate partners. At least 1 million. Do you know how many people are 1 million people? Which would say to me, at least some of the people that probably listen here emit violence against their intimate partners. And those are not conversations we're not willing to have, honestly, because the only way we can fix the problem is if we stare at it, look at it, tear it apart, own it, and try to fix it, because it's our problem. They say what? They say South Africa has the highest levels of femicide in the world. Part of the reason why the study was even commissioned by the minister was to ask the question, why? 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 Why does it happen so much? But it's normal. That's why people don't even want to phone radio stations and talk about it, because they've internalized it, right, to an extent where it's part of normal culture. It's like, well, women are going to get beaten by their partners. It's fine. Another day when we keep it moving. And next day, bamshayile. And I found it so fascinating how people are so, they place cultural imperatives on it when you read the study. They say, well, because he paid lobola on him, he's entitled to sleep with her whenever he wants to, and is entitled to beat her whenever he wants to. And I thought the cultural imperative of lobola is around the merging of families. That's how I understand it. Huaga huagisan, ugwaka ubhlobo. That's what the essence of lobola is. It's not transactional. You're not buying a woman when you go and pay lobola for her. You're humbling yourself to a family. You're saying, ribatla botlhobo. Anyway, Phineas in Polokwane. Hi, Phineas. Morning.
Morning to you and listeners as well. Let me first appreciate you for raising giving us a platform to speak about counterfeit goods. I want to speak about them and their sponsorship.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
But I want to also appreciate that I see municipalities here in Limpopo. District municipalities are going from one sponsorship to the other, checking expired food and other things.
Phineas, am I on speaker?
No.
Please don't put me on speaker, ne?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go on.
Yes. Now, my concern is all these authorities who are going from one sponsorship to the other, they are checking the expiry date of food, they are checking whether the sponsorships have been registered or not. Mm-hmm. And I think we're missing a point as a country and the society in general that the crisis there at the hand, I think, is not the expired foods, not the unregistered food and other things, but the counterfeit food that is sold in the store that comes out to affect our kids and the hygiene in these shops. Because most of these shops, I can tell you, most of them do not even have windows. The heat inside these other shops is very difficult to bear. And I want to suggest that those who are listening, when you do this work, please find a way to be able to determine the counterfeit goods in the process and also deal with the process. Because in Limpopo, I've seen...
Phineas, how do you find a way to determine the counterfeit goods? How do you know?
I would want to understand that if Coca-Cola, for example, sorry for mentioning the name of a company, mm-hmm. has produced bottles of 2 liters, they should be able to trace how many bottles have they issued. How do we then get the proper barcodes on those things? Mm-hmm. We should have a mechanism, perhaps, to be able to do these things. Because we've seen videos on social media proving that these people have capacity to produce these counterfeit goods. Now, the expiry dates and other things, they can still produce packages that reverse this expiry dates and other things. So might end up going on a futile exercise, and it will not even affect the situation at the end.
Okay. Thank you, Phineas.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Titus, you are in Burgersfort. Hi,
yes,
Titus. Hi, Titus.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm greeting everyone, the listeners and yourself and your team as well. I've got a problem here regarding GBV statistic. You know, KG, some of the numbers are being increased by our government. The subsidies